What's up, everybody? My name is Graham Elwood. You are watching the Political Vigilante live stream. It is Wednesday, August 26th, a little after 3 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. On today's show, we're going to bring on Jordan Chariton, talk to him for a little bit, and then at 4 o'clock, we will bring on Richard Medhurst. Back-to-back power episode. Hello, Benefu, Joshua, Concern, Stephen, C.S., Mona, Holy, Horn, Sherry McRae, Truth to Tweet, what's up? I am drinking a delicious smoothie. In it, unsweetened organic almond milk, half a frozen organic banana, frozen organic mixed berries. In there, I believe there's a blueberry, there's a raspberry, maybe even a boysenberry. I'm not sure. And a little bit of unsweetened peanut butter, but I'm running out. And the frozen organic power grains and vegan protein powder. Vegan smoothie. Eat it. Hello. Good morning from Australia. What's up, Emberg? What's up, Edwin? Peanut butter is so great. Am I right, Mona? Peanut butter's the best thing ever. All right, I'm going to tweet this out, and then we're going to bring on Jordan Chariton, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know why I keep singing that, Michael. I keep saying that. You don't know me. I was watching last night's stream because I not able to watch it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get the like numbers out there. Share this out on your social media. Boom, 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 boom. Do do bur boo bur 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 boo. What's up, citizens of Gotham? Support independent media. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. Emberg 33. Thank you for supporting the show. Great way to support the show is do what Mark has done, which is hit the little dollar icon at the bottom of the chat on YouTube. You can support the show for as little as $1. And all the money goes to me. You're charged a little service fee. That goes to YouTube, obviously, but it's a great way to support the show. And I will talk about, I'll answer your question here. Hey, Graham, please bring up Jesse Ventura with the guest. Yes, we will talk about the Draft Jesse movement. We will talk about that with Jordan Chariton, who's going to be on the show because he has covered both. Jordan has covered both of these conventions. Can we call them that? I want to say train wrecks. So he's calling his status quo is covering the two-party train wreck and their little circuses that they've had last week and this week. So we're going to talk about these circuses and why we're all fans of professional wrestling. So we're going to go talk about that in a jiff, and we will talk about the Movement for a People's Party convention, which is this Sunday, August 30th. I believe it starts at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And Jimmy Dore is going to speak. I think Nina Turner's there, Jesse Ventura, a couple of Chris Hedges. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Not that listening to warmongers lie to me isn't fun, but you never know. We might have to get some truth. All right, folks, please hit the like button. Like I said, we're going to talk to Jordan for a little bit, and then and he's a busy man, I know. And then we're going to bring Richard Medhurst on the show or later on in the show, roughly in about an hour. Graham, how's the air quality in SoCal? It's okay. I'm by the beach, so it's a little bit better, but the fire situation is still pretty bad. The last couple of days, we've had very humid weather, which helps the fire crews. And of course, we don't have as many fire crews because a large portion, not all, are prisoners. We use prison labor, slave labor, and COVID has run rampant through the California prison system because we have one of the highest numbers of inmates of any state. Kamala Harris helped do that. I mean, it's great. California's just fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button, share this out on your social media. Let's bring onto the program from Status Coup, Jordan Chariton. Jordan, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Graham?
I'm excellent, my friend. I am excellent. As excellent as you can be, living in a collapsing, fallen state banana republic. I
think that's generous.
Well, I'm an optimist, Jordan. I like to. I always see the silver lining. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood, and we have with us from Status Coup, Jordan Chariton. Jordan, you've been Status Coup. First of all, if you're not familiar with it, it is an excellent indie media outlet, and you really have a team of people that you send out. I mean, you really cover as much as you can, and you were at the forefront of covering the Flint water crisis when you were at TYT and everything. So really appreciate the work that you've done. Tell us what you and your team has seen from these two ridiculous conventions. So last week we if I'm not mistaken, we had a bunch of Republicans at the Democratic convention talking about how Trump isn't good enough on war. And now we've got this, I don't know, last night, his wife was talking about Trump and all the peace and the love that he's a part of. Like the night before they had this. Okay. So what have you seen from you and your team, like on the ground of these two conventions?
A train wreck is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I was with I was at the Shadow Convention in Milwaukee last week. So there was actual, stuff going around the convention center. Corporate media didn't show it. But I would say for the first few nights, you had about 20-ish, 25 Bernie Sanders supporters from all around the country that actually came to Milwaukee to protest wearing yellow vests. So if there is a yellow vest movement in America, I would say its origins might be in Milwaukee. So I wanted to be there to, even though it was a small group, obviously you're not going to get a ton of people during a pandemic, just speaking with these protesters that are not voting for Joe Biden. These protesters, some of them were delegates, represent thousands of people from the places they came that I would say, based on taking the temperature, are not voting for Joe Biden. And judging by the basically 1996 RNC convention we saw as the Democratic Party's convention, I think that it's almost like they're intentionally trying to lose, because we're already seeing polls coming out. Biden's lead is shrinking. Among independents, Trump, who has presided over 175,000 deaths, an economic disaster due to his inaction, Trump is starting to close that lead. And among independents, Biden is now down. And based on my interviews at a Trump rally that was there, because Trump was trolling the Democrats, he went to Wisconsin during the DNC convention. The excitement and energy you see from these Trump supporters, many of whom, I mean, I thought they were crazy in 2016, speaking with these people. It's a whole new level and a lot more, I would say, violent this time.
Really? What specific examples make you believe, or did you witness that telling you the Trump supporters of 2020 are more violent?
Honestly, I covered a ton of rallies in 2016 when I was at the Young Turks, probably like 40 to 50. I got the therapy bills to prove it. And I got a sense that there was there was racism and nativism at these rallies, but there was only a few times I actually felt like, these people might deck me or jump me. Most of it was just kind of kooky, crazy, people. And there were some that were actually good people that were just being hoodwinked by Trump, factory workers who had their jobs sent. At the Oshkosh rally that I covered at the DNC convention, which Trump was there on night one, I got a sense that I was going through a whole block interviewing Trump supporter after Trump supporter, and I felt a lot more of a threat where, some of these folks might jump me. You had, particularly among the, I'd say, I don't know, age 19 to 30 range. If you watch Back to the Future, you remember, Biff,
Right.
Like this kind of high school jock. And they were actually being egged on by their parents. At some points, I was interviewing one person with 20 people around them shouting at me. You heard anti-Semitic comments off camera. I don't remember how it came up, but I referenced me being Jewish to somebody I was interviewing, and off camera, somebody said that explains it. So, and there was also later on in our broadcast, there was actually, I think he was like a Latino biker. I don't know. But anyway, a Trump guy who confronted counter protesters, just screaming the N-word at some of the black protesters, calling some of them lesbians and all this crazy stuff. He was what I would say was a provocateur, but I just got a sense from 2016 to 2020, if it was a 7 out of 10 in terms of the crazy meter, it has reached a 10. These folks, it's not just that they don't want to be challenged, because I'm not lobbing softballs at them. I particularly had some testy moments because, I would say 20% of them were wearing masks. Most of these people were not wearing masks. So we debated that, but it definitely felt more from some of the insults that were coming my way, some of the people crowding me, that violence could erupt.
Yeah, they seem very, and since, the George Floyd protests of late May, early June, they seem very sort of emboldened in terms of like ramping up the white nationalism and the we got to take people out kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about that in a second, because there's now a lot of people on the left who are like, well, I'm getting a gun, or I got a gun, or whatever. And it's like, we're really, what is happening the last several nights in Kenosha since they shot Jacob Blake, the Kenosha police shot him in the back 7 times. Now it sounds like maybe he's going to be paralyzed the rest of his life. What is the sense too of, by comparison, that the Trump supporters, are exhibiting this? They're emboldened by him, by Trump saying, he says all this dog whistle stuff or just flat out racist stuff. And then this convention, last night is, Trump, pardoned a black man and did a naturalization ceremony with all these different people, which was just so like, all conventions are theater. The big two parties always do, the conventions are theater, but I don't know. How do you compare this with the Bernie delegates saying we're not going to vote, and this sort of, there's not a lot of excitement for Joe Biden. You covered the primaries. I remember and Jimmy would show it a lot on his live show of you covering this guy who was like, yeah, I liked how he said malarkey and I got a free t-shirt, and there's no excitement. How are you seeing that? You've obviously covered the primary. You and I ran into each other at a couple of Bernie events. Like, how are you? Like, there's no. I don't see anybody wearing a Biden shirt at any protest. I see a lot of fuck Trump shirts, but I don't see. And like here in Beverly Hills, we've had Trump supporters confront Black Lives Matter. I don't know. I know I'm sort of going all over the place, but trying to get like a temperature of these two parties in these 2 weeks of conventions. And then I don't know. What is your sense of that? I know I'm just kind of giving you a very broad question here, but like, it seems like Trainwreck it's not descriptive enough. I mean, it's like, it's so, and you're just seeing this country getting fractionalized into all of these little subgroups, and which is, in my opinion, by design. They don't want working class white people and working class black people or Latinos getting together going, oh, the ruling class is screwing us. So I don't know what other, when you were interviewing people at the Democratic convention versus the Trump supporter convention or events, what are you noticing?
Yeah, I mean, with the obvious caveat that there was not a ton of people to interview at the Democratic National Convention. The last night was the biggest night of protest because multiple protest groups joined. I would say, to me, every single person at that Trump rally is going to go out and vote. Like,
right.
There was no doubt in my mind. From old to young, they are all going to go out and vote, even if there's an uptick in coronavirus, because they don't seem to even care that much, to tell you the truth. They think it's a hoax. So not just from the Democratic National Convention, but just from the interviews I've done to seeing Twitter, and contrary to the Democratic Party, they say Twitter is not real life. Well, a lot of these people vote on Twitter, the most active. I would say that the same group of people that resulted in Hillary Clinton losing, corporate media won't tell you this, Hillary Clinton got 5% less black people than Obama got in 2012. She got 5% less Latinas than Obama got in 2012. She got 6% less age 18 to 29. That's why she lost. It was not James Comey. It was not Putin. She significantly tailed off from Obama in 2012.
Right.
Those same groups, I'm talking young African Americans under 40, young Latinos under 40, just young people, white under 40. They could be convinced to vote for Joe Biden if something tangibly was promised. But nothing tangibly is being promised. And I was actually surprised. I've spoken with several black voters who were not happy about him choosing Kamala Harris, particularly people under 40. Again, because the generational divide, younger people, black, brown, white, are not as loyal to a political party. So just because Biden picked a black woman, a lot of black people under 40 know who that black woman is. They know that she, jailed a lot of black men in California, better than I, being from California. So the interviews I did, every single person I interviewed said they weren't voting for Biden. They took the effort to actually come to Milwaukee during a pandemic when there's not even an actual real convention there to protest every night. And I think everything Biden is doing, literally, that whole convention was trying to get Mitt Romney to vote for Joe Biden, basically trying to get the Mitt Romneys of the world to vote for Joe Biden. There's not enough moderate Republicans in the country that will vote for a Democrat. They would either sit out or vote Libertarian. And there are certainly, what the Democrats are doing right now is giving permission to that same group, the under 40s across black, brown, and white. It's giving permission to not vote for Joe Biden.
Yeah. Literally their convention. Joe Biden is backed by the Lincoln Project, which just tells you the Democratic Party is the Republican Party of 30 years ago. And the Republican Party is just a fascist group of I don't know what, Klan member, psychopaths, but that's the thing that is so telling. And there is this clear generational divide. And I even see it in show business. And all these comedians that I started with in my 20s and the 90s, who are now in their 40s and 50s, who many of whom have had successful 6- and 7-figure careers in show business, they're the ones shaming people who are being critical of the Democratic Party, because they're the ones who are like, they wanted to go back to normal because normal was good for them. The Obama years, they were at brunch. They didn't care about the drone strikes. You and I talked about this the last time you were on your show. They didn't care about Occupy Wall Street getting the shit beaten out of them. They didn't care about Yemen. They didn't care about 6 to 8 million people, or whatever the number is, losing their homes. They didn't care about Flint. They didn't care about Standing Rock. They didn't care about any of it. And the people that are 40 and under did not grow up watching MSNBC and YouTube, they have no allegiance. Like Rachel Maddow's my team member, just like the Republican, the older people, like Hannity's my guy, Anderson Cooper's like my guy, and they're not. They don't fall for the identity politics. Like on my social media, it was all people in my age group who were like celebrating Kamala Harris, and mainly younger people were like, who use the internet, who use shows like this one and your show to get their actual information, not from the corporate media. They're the ones that are like, and they're the ones at the protests. It's not a bunch of Gen Xers and baby boomers. Look, there's people of all age groups protesting. There's people of all age groups that watch both of our shows and are paying attention and waking up. But it's the young people who are like, hey man, you assholes, I have no future because of you. Like there's no jobs for us. The environment's collapsing. And they go get all their information online. None of them have sat in front of a TV and watched the 8 o'clock news or whatever. Like what? They don't even know what that is. And so they go online and somebody says, hey, Kamala Harris put 120,000 black men behind bars. They go, wait a minute. They'll question it. They'll research it and go, yep, that's true. Like they get all their information from the internet. And it really seems like that, and we've talked about this before. I mean, all of us, lefty progressive journalists have been like, the Democratic Party would rather lose than let progressives take over that party. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard didn't speak 1 second on that convention stage. She's the one who took Kamala out in the debates last year. The only reason AOC spoke is because Bernie gave her 30 of his seconds or whatever, and no one's buying this, because I wonder if the Democrats are going, well, the economy is going to implode no matter what. So why don't we let Trump in there and blame it all on him?
Right. I think something that I'm seeing that's not talked about is, which goes to maybe they're trying to lose or they're just this stupid. Biden's calculation and his campaign's calculation is there's enough patriotic Republicans out there that will just, Trump is such a threat and a breaker of norms and all these things that they'll go over with Joe Biden, even if he's not their guy. But most Republicans, I don't want to generalize, but having covered politics for a while, most Republicans' first thought is not the moral character of the candidate. It's, am I getting my tax cuts? Are taxes low? Are regulations cut? Are regulations being cut? Are we, super duper? Is the candidate super duper Jesus and pro-life? That's most Republicans I know. It's not so much like, we need somebody that is an amazing moral leader. So yeah, maybe the Lincoln Project, because they're a bunch of grifters, and most of these former Bush people who have become, never Trumpers, that's a very small group. Yeah. So most Republicans around the country, they're not Donald Trump's reprehensible nature. Even if, they're not huge MAGA people, it's not enough to go vote for a Democrat because they don't want their taxes increased even marginally. Right. They don't want regulation, and they won't tolerate somebody who might appoint Supreme Court justices that keep Roe versus Wade. So the bottom line is they have miscalculated. By the way, this was Hillary Clinton's strategy in 2016. Try to get Jeb Bush's donors and Republicans. Chuck Schumer said for every blue collar worker we lose in Pittsburgh, we'll pick up 2 moderate Republicans. It's insanity. There's not enough Republicans that would vote for a Democrat, even a Democrat like Biden, who's basically a 1990s Republican. And the other thing I'm seeing, and Trump's campaign is a little schizophrenic at this point, but sometimes, and they did it last night at the RNC, when they hit that NAFTA argument, hitting Biden over NAFTA, which I wish Bernie would have done more, when they hit Biden for being pro-globalization and being instrumental in all the jobs being offshored, it's pretty damn crushing, because it's one of the few things Trump doesn't have to lie about. It's true. Yeah. And it's a convincing argument. You think these people that voted for Trump in 2016 in these Rust Belt states, if you look at the actual exit polls, which call me, crazy, I'm a journalist, I looked at the data, the top issue in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan, 2 top issues in the exit polls in 2016, trade, immigration. Well, trade is because Hillary was for TPP. She came from the NAFTA Democratic Party. They still care about that. And if Trump continues to hit Biden on that, it's a major vulnerability. Most people were screaming this during the Democratic primary. And of course, they propagandized that this is the safest, most electable. He's actually, to me, I think Pete Buttigieg would have a safer chance beating Donald Trump than a guy with such a long record on wrong and on the wrong side of most of the key issues of the 20th and early 21st century. So to me, that's why these polls are shrinking. Trump's strategy to only focus on his base, the pundits say it's crazy, but he might just, if all of his base comes out versus Biden, who again has the same depressed turnout that Hillary had among the youth, progressives, younger black people, younger brown people, I think Trump would beat him in a narrow electoral college victory.
Yeah, and the like upper middle class and wealthy neoliberals, they don't care about NAFTA because it didn't affect them. $15 an hour minimum wage doesn't affect them. Medicare for all doesn't affect them because they, I live in show business. I got all these Hollywood writers making these 6 and 7 figure, going on Twitter, these blue check people. Oh, you folks who won't vote for Biden, you're handing it. And it's like, you won't call the Democratic Party out on any of this crap because none of this stuff affected them. They're like, NAFTA, that was a million years ago. Yeah, because you didn't lose your job. But people, all they do is focus on, Trump's racism, which is a legitimate threat, and he's acting like a fascist, but they refuse to acknowledge, and they're running the same like Hillary lost in 2016. Like, well, let's use Hillary's strategy. Who would do this? Like who would run a losing strategy? And they refuse to acknowledge that Trump, for all of his racist, xenophobic, sexist rhetoric, he talked about jobs. He did speeches in 2016 in front of closed factories and said, I'm going to open this back up and give you a job. You and I thought it was nonsense, but they didn't, because we don't live in those towns. And these aren't people who have nice white collar jobs. They lost their jobs while Hillary was doing the $10,000 a plate, donor tour. Trump was going to all those Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, those states that Hillary didn't campaign in. And he's doing it again. And they won't even attack Trump on things that are legitimate to attack him on. Like and Bernie is such a quitter, disappointed. I just can't, that he wouldn't attack Joe Biden on this. He should have been going, I'm the guy to beat Trump. Here's why. And right now, if Bernie was the candidate, the numbers would be overwhelming, because he'd be like, I'm going to reinstate the pandemic task force that Trump got rid of. I'm going to give you free healthcare. I'm going to do student debt forgiveness. I'm going to make your lives better on these checkbook monthly bill issues that Democrats refuse to acknowledge. They just come in with identity politics. And it's like, hey man, a third of the country is not working. There are 28 million looming evictions. And yay, Kamala, who didn't identify as a black woman until she got into politics. She identified as Indian. So I can't even, and they refuse to acknowledge, they won't. And the crazy, and those diehard Trump people that you're talking about, they're crazy. It's like a cult, and there's racist, and it's like, feels like Germany in the 30s, and they're all Second Amendment people. And it's like, ooh, it's terrifying, but they just, nope. Any facts you bring up about Trump, but the goddamn vote any blue will do crowd won't, you bring up in the same way that Trumpers say, there you go, libtard, libtard snowflake. Anytime you bring up facts about what he's done, the $1.5 trillion tax break to billionaires and all this stuff that is hurting workers. If you had any kind of populist candidate with any kind of populist progressive platforms, you would crush Trump. Trump would be a footnote. It would just be, oh, remember that wingnut and his handful of crazy fans? Well, we came in with all these populist platforms, and this notion, you're going to pull Joe Biden to the left. Name one time a centrist Democrat was president and got pulled to the left. Never happened. It's never happened. Well, Carter went to the left. He did one term. JFK was, they put a bullet in his head and they killed his brother just for thinking about running. Everyone else, Clinton and Obama and Truman, all were centrists.
All I got to say, and I've told my viewers, vote for whoever you want. I'm not going to tell you to vote for, but I think it's delusional when I hear some in progressive media, some progressives be like, hold your nose, vote Biden, we'll get at him day one. You're not moving Biden if you weren't able to move him during the actual election when he's trying to get your vote. It's the Democratic Party, and it's politics 101. They'll do whatever they got to do to get your vote. And once they're in the office, you've lost your leverage. Honestly, to me, I will cover protests as long as I am on planet Earth, but protests is not going to get it done. I've always said the oligarchy, the bourgeoisie, the power structures, they'll just wait it out.
Right.
I mean, they'll say, "Oh, let the kids march, burn things down, whatever. It doesn't affect me." Protests with an attached economic boycott. That's the only way actual change will happen. And that's one of the things, what I think is dangerous for Biden is a lot of the people that I've been interviewing and speaking with are starting to get that cynicism that, you know what, honestly, I think we need to focus outside of electoral politics. So even if I did hold my nose and vote for Biden, it doesn't matter. As bad as Trump is, we got to focus on things outside of electoral politics, divestment campaigns,
yes,
economic boycotts, things like that. So if the voting base that Joe Biden actually needs to come out, maybe again, they might just be this stupid if they think it's moderate Republicans instead of under 40 Black, Latino, and Bernie Sanders supporters. But if cynicism and despair and hopelessness is being cemented to the point where they don't even think voting would make a big difference, they have a better shot with economic organizing, things like that, rather than electoral politics, then Biden's screwed. The other thing I would say is, Biden, this moralistic argument that the Democratic Party is making, if you noticed in the whole DNC convention, they barely mentioned the eviction crisis right now. They barely mentioned that people are now on week 3. The people that were getting that expanded $600 a week are now like on week 3 without that. The fact that you have people being pushed to eviction court right now. We have a
Tuesday.
Right. We have a frankly a silent depression that's forming. They barely mentioned it. Why? Because they don't actually have bold proposals to get us out of it, and their donors won't allow them to make those bold proposals. So the whole convention is about a moralistic argument. This man is Lucifer, elect me. But the problem is, for those people that are facing eviction, for those people that have lost that $600, their main concern isn't whether Trump's a menace to society. It's, I'm about to lose my apartment or house. I'm about to get kicked out with kids. I'm having to decide between medicine for the kids or groceries. That's what people are focused on, not, oh, Trump is, an abnormal, unusual threat. That might be what Rachel Maddow and MSNBC care about because they're not facing eviction. But the voting bloc that Joe Biden needs to inspire is the younger generation. Donald Trump being a degenerate, Islamophobic, racist, rapist, this and that is not breaking news to them. But it's also not enough of a reason for them to get out if you're not promising them, like you just said Bernie would have promised them, immediate relief. And Biden-Harris is not promising them immediate relief.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you're watching The Political Vigilante. I'm here with Jordan Chariton from Status Coup. We've been discussing the lesser of two rapists presidential campaign from these two utterly corrupt parties. I want to talk to you about the Draft Jesse Ventura campaign because it's very intriguing. It's a very much of a Hail Mary pass long shot, but we are in crazy times and it's anything is possible in this year. I said this a year and a half ago. I said the 2020 election is going to be the craziest one we've ever seen. I didn't foresee coronavirus, but anything is possible. So there is a Draft Jesse movement to get him to run as either an independent or Movement for a People's Party. There are 39 states that it's not that difficult that, just to show you how rigged our election system is. You can't just write in it. Most states, some states don't even have write-in capabilities on the ballots. And if they do, you have to have an approved list of write-in candidates. So that's part of what the Draft Jesse movement is doing. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, he's supposed to speak Sunday at the Movement for a People's Party. as is Nina Turner, which that to me is the most intriguing ticket. If that's what's going to happen, I don't know. But what do you see? Because like you said, and the under 40 crowd, plus the 100 million people that don't vote, many of them independents, liberty, whatever. That's the untapped. Like these two parties are fighting over these handful of people that vote. The wine mom neoliberals and the suburban Romney people, whatever. That's not the bulk of America. So how do you see this movement draft, Jesse? And do you see any chance? Because to me, this we have to get out of the two parties, like Bernie and AOC and the Squad and Tulsi, any of them thinking they can reform that party from within. It is laughable. You have as much shot as joining a drug cartel and getting them to start selling vegan smoothies. Like you have just as much of a shot. So how do you see this draft Jesse movement and movement for a People's Party? How do you see this?
With the caveat that my understanding was he ruled himself out, citing a family health concern. So if something has changed there, let me know. But
my understanding is he said that about a month or two ago, but now he said more like he's okay. I'm going to speak at he just learned about the draft Jesse movement like a week or so ago and said, wow, I didn't realize that. Like he's hinted at being more open to it. He didn't just shut the door like he did a couple months ago. So that's kind of the update on that. I had Richard Idris on this show who works for Draft Jesse, and the fact that Jesse is speaking Sunday is intriguing. So with that information and what you know of covering all of this pretty extensively, what do you think?
I always tell my viewers not what I know they would like to hear, but what I know is true. Okay. There's not a chance in hell the power structure in this country will allow Jesse Ventura to be on. I think it would be a miracle if he got on 45 states ballots. I mean, most ballots in America are controlled by the governors. So I believe this late in the game, without a serious pressure campaign, which obviously the corporate media would black it out, I find it very, very hard to believe he'd be able to get on every ballot. But for each state, under the assumption that he would, I think Jesse Ventura is the rare person that could actually out-Trump Trump. What I mean by that is, remember Trump during the RNC primary? It was like professional wrestling. He called them all puppets. I wish Bernie would have done more of that during the primary. Called them by name, and people ate it up. You know, he just didn't care. And he had that machismo, I think it's phony, but that tough guy, machismo, I mean business thing that really made like Ted Cruz look small. All these people look very small. I think Jesse Ventura, more than anyone else I could think, could do that to both Biden and Trump. He could hit Biden on all the things we wish Bernie would have hit him on very credibly. And he could hit Trump and even to a point neutralize Trump's phony bravado, to the point where I don't even think Trump would be able to really do much, because he truly is an independent. And he truly
is a tough. Jesse is a former Navy SEAL. Like Jesse could kick your ass. Trump wouldn't. He would. You could beat Trump in a slap fight, and he'd start crying, and his tanner would come off on your hand. Like he would. He's a crybaby.
If Jesse was on a debate stage with both of them, I think he could very easily become a phenomenon, because I could see Jesse Ventura very credibly saying, we got, one old hag who is very, very responsible for the destruction of industrialized America and, the rise of basically, Wall Street and special interests buying our government. And over here, we have a criminal money launderer, borderline, say what you want, rapist, whatever. I think he could really, if he was on a debate stage or even got any attention, I think he could really basically cement that we don't need to pick between these two rock bottom choices. We have a better choice. So if he decided to run very last minute, I think it would be very, very hard to get on a debate stage. But I think he would take away a huge chunk of votes from Biden, for sure. Whether he could win, I don't know. But I think he'd take away the same voting group that you and I have been talking about, that under 40 across black, brown, white. I think a lot of them would go to Jesse Ventura. I even think some Republicans who are kind of, falling out of love with Trump might go to Jesse Ventura.
I think it's very interesting. I feel the same way. I mean, look, he can get on 39 states ballots if the Draft Jesse movement is successful, which is 400 electoral votes. Now, I agree, and I like having at least some shred of hope so I don't hang myself. But I'm also not naive. You're correct. These two parties will join forces to block him because they know how powerful he could be. But that being said, I agree. I totally agree, and I want to add to this. If Draft Jesse movement, and I encourage my audience to get involved in this, give it a shot. The worst that happens is we're back to these two awful choices. But if somehow he can get on the ballot in at least 39 states and can get on a debate stage, I not only think he appeals to the under 40 crowd for sure, he appeals to all these libertarians who, most libertarians are kind of like disenfranchised Republicans. And I always give libertarians credit, even though there's a lot of things I might disagree with them on. They at least made a decision to go search out a third party. They didn't just say, well, I was born a Republican, this is my thing, or I was born a Democrat, this is my thing. They searched it out. And I think all of these independents, I think some of the the Reagan Republicans, I call them, the moderate Republicans would go, I'll vote for this guy because, like you say, on a stage, he's an ex-Navy SEAL. So when he is bad-mouthing, when he's talking about how horrible war is, those sort of people that probably would never give Medea Benjamin, who I love and respect, and I think what Code Pink does is amazing, but some of those America first, they still think fighting terrorism is good, whatever. Like those folks are probably they're just like, oh, Medea is some old hippie or whatever. They wouldn't give her credit or respect. I have a lot of credit and respect for Medea Benjamin, but those people that just would like, oh, the anti-war movement, when they hear a Navy SEAL go, the war machine is awful, war is horrible. And the way and I don't watch a show all the time, but I watch it fairly enough. He calls out the banks. He calls out the military industrial complex. He calls out the oligarchs. And if he did it on a stage with these two utterly corrupt guys and had somebody like Nina Turner as his VP pick, I think he could win. And that's why I'm like, anything is possible in this crazy year. Anything is possible. And people are so right. I mean, millions of people are taking to the streets and protesting. Millions of people. They're itching for somebody to rally behind. Joe Biden is not that guy. Bernie let him down. They're just not. They're not. They can't. And rallying behind and an independent would be the guy that could unify people, because he could actually go into the red states and say, I understand what you're going through. I served this country. I wears his biker jacket or whatever. Like, I mean, that stuff actually, and the way he talks, he's so no nonsense. That's the thing they like about Trump. But as you and I say, it's all just Trump. It's an act, or he thinks he's tough, but he's a rich kid, he's a candy ass. He's a silver spoon, where Ventura is not. Ventura is like not going to back down from anybody. He's not going to like, well, I'm going to sue you and say you're lying, like Trump does, like a little child. He's going to go, no, here are the facts. And it is an insane long shot, but yeah, I think that's what this, because most of the country is ready for a third party. They just don't know it yet. It hasn't been presented. And it's like, look, I voted for Jill Stein and she's been on the show and I got crazy respect for her. But Dr. Jill Stein of the Green Party is just too, hippy dippy for some people. They're just go, okay. And it's just a token gesture. It's a voter, but like Jesse Ventura is someone they like, because he won as a governor. He was an independent guy. He did it.
Well, that's the point I was going to make. He actually has been a governor. So we're in a pandemic. People are facing evictions, don't have money, lack of health care. He actually, as opposed to Trump, who, talked about, whatever, being a businessman, Jesse Ventura actually has credibility and could talk about the things he did in his state. And from a point of view of actually knowing how to govern while hitting Biden and Trump, Joe Biden's never been an executive of anything. So, and Trump has been an executive that's gone bankrupt 57 times. So I think the fact that he's he's kind of got both things. He could kind of frame himself as anti-establishment while at the same time having credibility as somebody who's been a governor.
Yeah, because he knows local politics. That's the
Right.
thing he's talked about before. He knows how to work on a local level. And this notion that, people just every 4 years, especially like people, neoliberals, just think like the president's going to come in and swoop and wave this wand and everything's fixed. And it's like, no, like your unemployment, that's through the state. Like evictions, that's your local sheriff is going to come evict you, and, Jesse Ventura is for a Green New Deal. He's for Medicare for all. He's for ending all these ridiculous regime change wars. And he comes from them from a very practical, I've been there point of view. And he would also we're going to finally take care of veterans in the VA and all this. He would give us infrastructure jobs for the Green New Deal. And rather than just sort of Al Gore, rainbow flag, platitudes for it. He'd be like, this is the Green New Deal, like FDR's New Deal. These are the infrastructure. We're going to stop spending all this money on war. We're going to put people to work. Anyway, it's intriguing. It's a long shot. And I'm really curious to see what happens on August 30th, because anything's possible, man. So I support Draft Jesse. So Jordan, as we go here, the last 2 nights have been violence in Kenosha. Somebody died. There was I've seen some clips. I'm not quite, it's hard to kind of sort out, but it looks like there was one guy that might've been part of some white nationalist group that had a gun that shot people, and then people came at him and he shot, and he's protected by the cops. It just feels like when I was watching the protests 3 months ago, I was like, it's a matter of time before everybody starts showing up at these things with guns. It feels like it's starting to happen, which is terrifying to me. How do you see this? And all of the issues we're talking out, they're all interconnected here. And with the evictions coming, and, Joe Biden and Kamala, they don't want to defund the police. Neither does Trump. What's happened in Kenosha the last couple nights, and all of this rallies and protests that you've covered just since the pandemic, really, how do you see things shaking out here?
Honestly, I try not to be hyperbolic, but I think we're on the precipice of a real race war here, which Trump has obviously been ginning up, but honestly has been brewing for years. I mean, this is a much smaller scale thing than what happened in Kenosha. But just yesterday, my partner, Jen, and I were trying to get an Uber in New York City. We came across a white guy who was screaming some pretty racist stuff at a black bus driver. So Jen started filming him. He lunged at her, attacked her, stole her phone, and threw it, and got away. Cops later found him. But this guy was screaming, some racial slurs at this black bus driver, ranting about Black Lives Matter. And just the act of Jen filming it as a journalist, he lunged at her, knocked her down. She's got bruises, really shaken up. So obviously that's not to the level of what happened with Jacob Blake. But what I'm saying is these kind of race things are going on all over the country at low levels, because a lot of these white people who, frankly, a lot of their aggrievement is racism, but some of it is they're economically. I mean, we've seen in history when there's economic desperation, people start to blame the other, right? So, and it turns violent. So what I'm seeing in Kenosha, like you were saying, I've kind of been seeing it, and you see the chatter online that these white militia groups, under the guise of protecting business, have been chomping at the bit to go after these rioters and looters and this and that. And Trump's sometimes dog whistle, sometimes siren, is encouraging it. It just came out that this guy last night who shot up the white militia guy was front row at a Trump rally in January. So, I think that, unfortunately, I think Kenosha is a sign of things to come. And I'll tell you what, I mean, obviously I'm not saying go out and kill people, but I think this notion of condemning people for burning cars and this and that, well, I don't blame them. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't blame them. And I think, Joe Biden is being PC. He put out a video today condemning it and don't destroy the community. Well, you're kind of destroying their communities by slaughtering black people. continually. That destroys communities.
Like intergenerational, generation to generation is being traumatized by this.
Right. And the children of this poor guy who saw their father shot 7 times, now paralyzed from the waist down. So to me, I think these white militia groups, with or without Trump, this, I've told my viewers, listen, if Biden wins, it's not like these people are going, they're not hibernating back inside their homes. The genie has been let out of the bottle. These white supremacist groups, these, MAGA people, they're not going anywhere. Maybe if Trump loses, maybe the torch gets passed to Trump Jr. with all that cocaine, or Tucker Carlson. But I think what you're seeing, honestly, is the makings of a race war. These people were racist before Trump, but with the Tea Party a decade ago, then Trump swooping in, they're here. They're not going anywhere. And frankly, I think that Joe Biden is probably one of the worst people I would want in charge of the country if this snowballs and gets worse. Because Joe Biden, truly, his nature is law and order. I mean, that's who he is. We saw the speeches of him as a senator. He basically tossed out, not the exact words, but was saying very similar things to Hillary Clinton's super predators. He could pretend that he's softer now and has seen, come to see Jesus, but at his core, he's a law and order guy. He believes in very, very, police departments on steroids, and he's saying the right things now. But overall, I mean, Trump has really, really instigated a lot of these white supremacist groups, but what's really instigating it is these murders of black men, because you're going to see more and more protesters out there, and white militiamen. That's kind of their candy when they feel like they could go in and be the quasi police.
Lied. I mean, that's what was happening last night. We're seeing videos where these guys were talking. They're like, "Oh, the cops said we're going to send them your way."
Yeah.
I mean, the cops. We've seen it in city after city after city.
In Portland too. Yeah.
Portland, Salem, Oregon, the cops go, hey, Proud Boys, sit tight or whatever. Like, they protect them. And it's like, and then you see this organization, NFAC, an armed black militia. And I don't blame anybody in the black community for going, shit, I need a gun. They're shooting me. They're killing us. And then they're giving armed militias free reign. So there's going to be some people within these communities, black, brown, even just white, lefties who are showing up and watching this are going to go, wow, all right, I guess we got to arm ourselves now. I mean, like, it's just ramping this up. And, I don't know that the NRA was like, thought it through, that a bunch of people on the left are going to think, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to go get guns now.
Well, think about it. If you're a black person in America, and I'm not white splaining, obviously I don't understand being white, but if I was Jacob Blake and that cop is starting up with me after I broke up a fight, by the way, I would absolutely want to walk away, because if I stay there, I have a 50-50 shot of getting killed, right? Yeah. If you're black, you have a 50-50 shot of getting killed by running or walking away or staying there. So it's kind of a lose-lose. And frankly, from what we understand, he didn't have a weapon on him. But I would even understand if he was walking back to his car to get a gun, because why shouldn't he be able to protect himself if you are, in America, a target of police? Yeah. So I think that, it's really ugly what's going on. And I think a real underrated and underreported thing is a lot of these police officers on their own time, if you look at their Facebook pages, many have been caught, including in LA, by the way, actually being part of white supremacist groups as police officers. So the police department, obviously not every police officer, but there's a lot of racists, obviously, in police departments. And when they see these white militia groups coming, they're not confiscating their guns.
No way.
No. So, I think it's very problematic. And by the way, with the stuff that Trump is saying and egging people on, he's openly talking about, well, maybe we need people to come to polling places on election day to make sure there's no funny stuff going on. I'm a little concerned about, the next few weeks and election day. Obviously, hopefully there's enough mail-in ballots, but Trump is really, to me, inciting more of these groups to show up on election day to polling places.
Right. And then it's going to force other people on the other side to go, well, I guess we got to show up. I'm not going to sit there unarmed. If there's a bunch of white nationalists with weapons, I'm not going to just sit there and not have there's no, like, oh man. And as a comic who's traveled around this country for the last 25, 30 years, people who are like when Trump won, I know all these people who weren't comedians who were shocked at I didn't know this country was that racist. I'm like, where have you been? Well, I'll tell you where you were. You were just in LA and New York and Chicago, and you didn't travel through the middle of the country the way I have. You didn't see the bumper stickers and hear the jokes and the Confederate flags. And you didn't see that, man. You didn't see the gun stores and all that stuff. And now,
I'll never forget when I was at the Young Turks during 2016. I covered a Confederates for Trump rally in South Carolina, and that shit was dark, man. I mean, yeah, I just coped with it by laughing through it. But yeah, no, these people, Trump has been I think it started before Trump. I think some of it was Tea Party, Trump, Ted Cruz, Steve King, but Trump really ignited a flame here. And frankly, again, bringing it full circle to everything we've been talking about, imagine if Biden's message right now is, I understand why these people are burning cars. I understand why they're burning buildings. I don't think they should, but I understand the rage. And frankly, police that are not immediately telling these white militia people to go home, they need to be fired.
Yeah.
If Biden would be making those points, he would be galvanizing, young black people that are out there, because he would be speaking on their behalf. But he is being told by consultants, no, you don't want to lose the moderate suburban, wine moms in suburbia by making it seem like you're blessing the rioters. Well, you know what? Honestly, if your brother, father, cousins, friends were all being executed city to city, you might want to burn shit down. Yeah, I'm just saying. I
said this on the show. Jacob Blake is the nephew of Justin Blake, who I went to high school with. We're on the football team together. His nephew was shot in the back and is now paralyzed. I have 3 nephews. That's probably not going to happen to them because they're white. If this happened to one of my nephews, I'm sorry, man. All my hippie vegan smoothie shit would be out the window. I'm just like, I would be, and I said this, and I lost a couple friends when there was rioting here in Santa Monica where I live, because I was like, I understand. I'm not happy that they looted in Santa Monica, this nice little beach town, but I understand it. And someone just flipped out. They're a baby boomer. They got an Obama sticker on their Prius and they got a nice condo, but they're afraid that, she's like, I don't even know what they're protesting. And what are you talking about? They're talking about defunding the police. What does that mean? What are they even taking a knee for? And she's someone who considers herself all liberal and Obama and all this other stuff. And she, at the end of the day, doesn't want her money threatened. And look, and if Biden did what you said, and said, I understand this, who he would be repeating the words of? Martin Luther King, who said, if you don't understand the emotion and the causes of rioting and looting isn't like, oh, kids out there getting their kicks. It's fucking frustration. There's nothing else for me to do. You've taken everything from me. You beat me, you push me, you give me no jobs, you give me no health care, you give me a subgrade education, and now you're shooting my friends or neighbors. Fuck you. I'm going to burn it down, man. I'm going to burn it down. And that's what I would too, man. When the protests happened here in Santa Monica, it was May 31st. I hadn't gotten my unemployment yet. And I make money from doing this show, so I was okay. But if I was just a road comic and I've had all my tour dates canceled, and I thought to myself, they looted a grocery store. And I'm like, if I didn't have this show and I hadn't gotten my unemployment yet, which was the case at that time, I would have put on a mask and a backpack and gotten some food. And I'm a 50-year-old white guy with no criminal record. So if I'm thinking that, like and I'm thinking I've never owned a gun in my life. I don't like them. I jokingly, well, not joking, but I say I'm a huge Batman fan. It's in the comics. He called the gun the coward's weapon. But now I'm just like, what am I supposed to do? Just if I'm going to live in Mad Max world where everybody's like, I get it. I have friends of mine that are black, like, Graham, I got to get a gun. And what am I going to say? Hey, namaste. Fuck, they need to be armed. I mean, I've done shows and with many people and interviewed people in the Native American community. They're like, we have to have guns on the reservation because people just come and kill us. And there's no law enforcement. They're murdering and mistreating indigenous women. They're just snatched up and nobody investigated. So it's like this is it's insane. It's pure madness. But like,
well, I think there's also another element that honestly, I don't even know if Bernie would say this, but some politician should say this. Listen, I'm not a lawyer, but I've covered enough of these. There was a similar thing to what happened to Jacob Blake in Texas, which I covered down there. There was a guy named O'Shea Terry, a black man who was pulled over by white cops. He drove away. They were getting him for weed. He drove away, which whatever. Yeah, you're not supposed to drive away. But if you look at the police manual of the Arlington Police, if somebody flees, you're supposed to call for backup. What happened was a police officer jumped on the car and shot into the window 5 times and killed the man. So what should be said right now, what Joe Biden should be saying, what I would say, what is there to investigate? Here is the Kenosha Police Training Manual. Okay, I don't have it in front of me, but I could promise you this. The police training manual in Kenosha versus every other city in America, if a suspect is walking away and walking into their car and essentially fleeing, you would call for backup in that case. So I don't particularly know, everybody cheered him because he's called for a transparent and open investigation. What is there to investigate? At the very least, right now, this police officer should be fired. The other thing is
administrative leave, by the way.
Right. He should be fired because there's nothing to investigate. It's right there on video. He was walking away into his car. The police officer yanked him by the shirt as he was shooting 7 times. Of course, he'll say, well, I thought he was grabbing a gun or a knife, whatever, but it's on video. So there really isn't much to investigate. In the short term, Biden could lead and say this police officer needs to be fired. And frankly, you know how many black and brown people are sitting in jail in America, Graham, without charges?
Right.
I've seen during my arrest in St. Louis a few years ago, it was basically a jail with people in there for 2 years still have not been charged with anything. So you have a police officer on tape shooting this man point blank 7 times, has not been fired, no nothing. I don't know what there is to investigate. He should at least be fired and removed from the streets. Gun taken, all that. If Biden would say that, I mean, frankly, he'd win the election because he would galvanize a whole generation. He's not going to say that because from national to state level, we've fetishized the police in this country to the point where it doesn't matter if they're executing right on video. We call for investigations that take 6 months, take a year and a half. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And then if there is even a trial, which rarely happens, there's a 99% acquittal rate. So it's just like,
think about it. Laquan McDonald, the Chicago teenager that was shot 16 times. He was on the ground already, pretty much lifeless, and was shot 13 more times. Total 16. That cop only got 2nd degree. So with good behavior, this and that, probably be out in 10 to 15 years because he's a cop. He shot him 16 times. So, listen.
Yeah. Anybody shoot a cop 16 times? Anybody shoot a cop in the back 7 times and just get put on paid administrative leave?
It's insane. And I think this whole notion of investigations, again, I'm not a law enforcement person, but somebody's got to say, in this case, we don't need an investigation to take the immediate step. He should be fired. I mean, in the case of George Floyd, at least the mayor of Minneapolis said he should be fired and charged. He kind of, wimped out on defunding the police, but at least he said the obvious. Yeah, he needs to be fired immediately and charged. You can't even get that from Biden when it's a live execution right in front of you. I mean, it's crazy. And this BS, about his record and, Jacob Blake had a record, this and that. It doesn't matter. None of that matters.
Oh. Yeah. So anyone with a record gets shot in the back. I mean, give me a fucking break, man. God,
and by the way, I've been covering this stuff for years, long before George Floyd. And it's the same exact thing. I mean, I went down last year, Status Quo went down to cover Botham Jean. I don't know if you know about that, but 26-year-old black guy in Dallas. He came here from the Caribbean to study in college. He was just hanging out in his apartment, and a white police officer intruded in and shot him dead, citing, she claimed she thought it was her apartment because.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been covering this long before this year's explosion of protests, and it's the same common denominator. That cop, when you looked at her Facebook, when you looked at her history, was a racist. Most of these cops shooting ad nauseum have things in their past that are clearly, Blue Lives Matter or anti-Black Lives Matter or just racist people. To me, I was saying this yesterday, but at some point, older people sometimes have their licenses removed, right? Because they shouldn't be driving anymore. At what point are we not going to just get psychologists to every police department in America and decide which ones have to be fired?
Well, yeah, that's part of the problem is these white supremacists, these Klan members have infiltrated the police departments for decades, if not centuries. And this is just so they pick their own, they protect their own. This has been going on literally since the slave era. I mean, it's just preposterous. And it's like, we need civilian oversight. I'm just done with cops investigating cops. It's like, oh, we'll let the bankers investigate. Like, you know what? Let's let the drug cartels and do their own drug trafficking investigation. Let's just see, like, give me, yeah. Anyway, all right.
Well, also one more thing. Last night, I don't know if you brought yourself to watch the whole convention. Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, I think is his name. He is currently the one deciding on Breonna Taylor, whether those officers will be tried. He was speaking at the RNC last night. First sentence was about the anarchists in the street. So we have attorney generals deciding on cases like Breonna Taylor, who was executed while sleeping by Kentucky police. So it's not only that police shouldn't be investigating. You have right-wing or left-wing politicians for their own political purposes of advancement that are not going to bring charges against police. This guy's not bringing charges against the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. He was up there at the RNC, praising Trump as Jesus and ranting about looters and anarchists. So the whole thing needs to be radically overhauled from top to bottom, because at this point, I don't want to say at this point, it's been this way. Black people are just target practice in America. And if I had a black child, I would be afraid to let him out of the house, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I know. All right. Well, Jordan, thank you for taking time out of your day. Where can people follow and support what you're doing over there at Status Quo?
Yes, as you know, Graham, YouTube likes to hide us in a cave. So we do have a YouTube channel, Status Quo, COUP. Definitely go check it out. Please subscribe. We're live almost every day. And statusquo.com/join if you want to support us for as low as $5 a month. We're out in the field. We were just at the DNC convention covering protests. Then we went to Chicago to cover the pandemic and evictions. And then we went to Flint to cover, there was a settlement. So we're actually one of the few outlets actually in the field covering things other than the Orange Man.
Other than Orange Man bad in Russia. Okay, well, it's weird. I didn't think there was anything else to cover. I didn't realize any of this other stuff was happening, because I'm just told Orange Man bad and Pelosi's ice cream is good. So Jordan, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show. Everybody support indie media, support shows like Status Quo. And of course you can support what we're doing here. GrahamElwood.com. We have a Patreon. We have Rockfin and all that. So thank you, Jordan, so much for being on the show. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Amen. Jordan Chariton, ladies and gentlemen, for being on the show. Let me go through some super chats, and then we'll bring Richard Medhurst on the show. Let me have some smoothie first. First of all, hit the where are we at? Hit the like button. We have only 380 likes. There's 679 people watching. So that means half of you haven't hit the like button. So please hit the like button right now. It's that thumbs up button. Hit it right now. This is why we hammer this, is because this is part of the analytics. So all these numbers help. Views. If you're new to the show, if you're a subscriber, you're new to the show, hit the subscribe button. Like maybe you just came over because you're a big Status Quo fan and you don't know my show. Please hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell notification button. I go live 5 days a week, and I drop usually anywhere from 1 to 3 videos a day. So hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button if you have never subscribed to this channel. All those analyticals, those numbers help. So we're about 71,000 some subscribers. They've been holding us there. As Jordan says, they keep us in a cave. Let's get up to 5. We should be up at least over 600 likes. Come on now. All of you watching the show, hit the like button. So let me reach out to Richard Medhurst. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go. I'm going to go kind of reverse order with the super chat. Sparky, shave your knuckles for justice. Jordan naively doesn't realize that there's formal training or a police department standard operating procedure behind the cop shooting Blake. Not right, but it's there. Well, I don't know that he's naive about it. He's just talking about and it they're either given the wrong standard operating procedure or they're abandoning the correct one for this to continue to happen, man. But thanks for supporting the show, Sparky. No matter, shave your knuckles for justice. Don't forget about the guy who was shot in the back and planted the taser on him, caught on video. If you think protests are the problem and not an oppressive police state, you're a effing fool. It's so, I know. And every time, oh, why are they burning stuff down? Like, you should be in outrage that they just shot a guy in the back. So I'm sick of he ran, he was resisting, he has a criminal record. That doesn't mean anything. Oh, so did this cop ever done it? Oh, this cop hits his kids, or he stole something. The cop shoot him in the just automatically the cops are the good guys is such bullshit. It's such bullshit. Big Baby Zuba, shave your knuckles for justice. Thoughts on Aaron Coleman? I guess he's staying in. I don't know. I don't know much about that dude and where he's running. So I don't know. I don't really know. I have much to say on that one. Not applicable. Boom. Shave your knuckles for justice. Who counts the votes in the general? Well, there's the election boards in all of the states, which are run by both of the political parties. See how corrupt our system is? Just from the head down, head to toe. It's just completely corrupt. So let me go get some more of the super chats before we bring Richard Medhurst on the show. Share this on your social media, ladies and gentlemen. All right, where were we? Matt S. Shave your knuckles for justice. Thoughts on on Sandman, the MAGA kid from that Native American drum video. CNN and MSNBC paid a lot for character defamation, and he was center for RNC. It just shows that this is the ruling class's plan to keep us divided. And if we had actual journalism with the corporate media, they would be calling out and they would be informing the people, and there wouldn't be as much divide. But divide's good for numbers. It's good ratings, divide. The corporate media pushed Trump. I mean, CNN and all them, they got great ratings with Trump. Remember in 2016, they cut away from a Bernie speech to go to an empty podium where Trump was going to speak. It's all nonsense, man. Thomas Seaman, shave your knuckles for justice, Tommen. We need to hear from Ray McGovern and Bill Binney before the election. Give them your platform. Oh, I'd love to have both those guys on the show. Ray, I think I've met a couple of times. I did the Unity for Jay about a year or two ago when Susie Dawson had me do that. So I got to reach out to both those guys. I'd love to have them on the show. I got crazy respect for both of them. Matt S. Shave Your Knuckles for Justice. Seems painfully obvious that the DNC wanted to separate from the progressive base. The military industrial complex seems strong in unity. Yeah. Look, having progressives take over the Democratic Party is bad for business for the Democrats. I mean, people like Pelosi are out, Chuck Schumer's out, the Clintons, the Obamas, they're all gone. Like that Pete Buttigieg, they don't have a home there if the progressives take over the party, because then the corporate money's gone, the war money's gone, the private prison money's gone. Then we're helping people and they're winning, and then they actually are winning elections rather than just going, oh, Trump's bad. Trump, the guy we propped up in the Podesta emails, the Pied Piper strategy. I didn't make that up. That's in the Podesta emails. That was Hillary and the DNC's strategy, is to prop him up. They looked at all the candidates in the Republican field and said, let's go against Trump. He's the most beatable. That's what they did. And they lost. And then they blamed Bernie and Russia and Jill Stein and Susan Sarandon. That was their strategy. Unbelievable. Seth Peterson, what's up, Seth? Save Your Knuckles with Justice. Love Graham and Status Quo. You guys are awesome. We must overthrow the puppet masters, the oligarchy, for any change to be possible. You are right. Sparky, Shave Your Knuckles for Justice. Drug cartels could sell drugged vegan smoothies. See? That's a incremental centrism that we need. They're still selling drugs, but they're inside of vegan smoothies. So, well, I got to take the victories where we can. And they would sell more. Now they're getting more. There's more drug addiction and more crime and families collapsing. But hey, the smoothie, there's the drugs have vegan smoothie. That would be the incremental centrists. Auntie Ann, Shave Your Knuckles for Justice. Jesse is worried about losing his health insurance. We could crowdfund that for him. Big Baby Zubas, Shave Your Knuckles for Justice. We have to create the conditions for third parties. That's a good point, Big Baby. Sparky, Shave Your Knuckles for Justice. Without training, cops would have grabbed Blake's shirt and pulled him out of the car door. The fact that they shot him shows they were trained too. Yeah, absolutely. So they were trained to shoot him. Right. Where's the training like, oh, he's running, whatever, holster my gun. Right? Taser, non-lethal force. They have all this non-lethal stuff that they're trained on. Nah, boom, boom, boom. Progressive geek, Shave Your Knuckles for Justice. Howie Hawkins and the Green Party candidate, Socialist Party endorsed. Why does nobody mention his name? I'm just not that excited about Howie Hawkins. I've talked about him before, but there's all this like infighting and corruption within the Green Party, so I kind of lost faith in them. He's a Russiagator, Howie Hawkins. I'm just not that excited about him, and nobody knows who he is. The whole country knows who Jesse Ventura is. Everybody knows who he is. Nobody knows who Howie Hawkins is. More people knew Dr. Jill Stein than they did Howie Hawkins. So to me, it's just like, and the people running for the socialist candidates or whatever, oh, I appreciate it, but nobody knows you're. Then it's just that like, well, if we get 5% of the vote, whatever, like, we need someone that can come in and shock the world and win. And I know it's a crazy long shot, but I all throughout history, there's all these events where everybody said that's impossible, that'll never happen. The Berlin Wall is never coming down. Gandhi is never going to give the English Empire to give up control of India. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Right? And all those things have happened. It's just, you got to have a little bit of crazy faith, man. I know it's a crazy long shot, but it's Howie Hawkins is not, no one's going to rally about it. They're just going to go, oh, he's just some, and a handful of people give him his vote and okay. Like the libertarian guy in Jill Stein last time. Great. Okay. But nobody that could like actually like shock the world. Gina Gal 9. What's up, Gina Gal? Shave Your Knuckles for Justice. Thanks, Graham and Jordan. And thank you, Gina. Sparky, shave your knuckles for justice. Trump snuck in via Clinton sponsorship and double-crossed her. Jesse may not have that luxury. I still think that it's worthwhile for him to run. Absolutely. I'm not naive. I know Jesse Ventura is a crazy long shot. I'm well aware of that. Jessica Solier, shave your knuckles for justice. Jessica, thank you. It's bizarre that we have more checks and balances to get a law passed than we do for armed police who have clear patterns of all kinds of abuse. I know. Don't want to do a background check their social media. Are they showing any racist or white nationalist tendencies? Right? Sparky, shave your knuckles for justice. Gotta admit, Trump double crossing Hillary was cool. Yeah. We're going to bring Richard on in a sec, folks. Let me read a couple more of the super chatters. Sparky, shave your knuckles for justice. Used to be the last thing cops wanted to do was shoot someone. If they got away, so what? Many had religion, thou shalt not kill, plus too much paperwork. Yeah. Now a guy runs away and they're like, he's running. Like, all right, okay. Shoot him in the back like that guy in South Carolina several years ago. It's just sadistic. It's evil. It's like we just have a sadistic, soulless country. It's just gone. Large Marge sent me. Shave your knuckles for justice. Nice onion, Graham. Thank you. Onion shirt. I love the onion. Large Marge sent me. Where are you coming in from, Large Marge, huh? You're not in South Dakota, are you? Sparky, shave your knuckles for justice. Mad Max's post-apocalyptic world suits me the best, but since I know that it would be bad for society as a whole, I'm against it. Sparky, shave your knuckles of justice. Again, you're making Gotham great again. Jordan, oh, we already did that one. No matters. Oh, we did that one already. We did Aaron Coleman. Marco Smith, shave your knuckles for justice. Dragging my knuckles for justice. Right on. Mona Carmona. What's up, Mona? Good to see you on the show. Shave your knuckles for justice. Can you and Richie sing together? All right. Farkas Garvey, shave your knuckles for justice. Does Jesse want to run? Well, initially a couple months ago, it seemed like maybe no, but now it seems like maybe he's opening up to it. So I don't know. We'll find out Sunday. He might just flat out say he's going to run Sunday. I don't know. 599 people watching. Kanye got kicked off of 11 ballots. No, I know. I mean, that's the thing Jordan was bringing up. He goes, I find it hard to believe, that the powers that be are going to even let Jesse get close, that's the thing you're fighting against. North American Ape, boom. Is this the reaction that we get for run-of-the-mill criminals? Then why doesn't this happen to white-collar criminals and war criminals more than? Yeah, I know. Oh, he had a criminal record. Oh, okay. Well, then Steve Mnuchin, they should just, any of those Goldman Sachs guys, they should just get gunned down then? Is that, they've done way more than some guy who is a petty, crime, some petty theft or whatever. Because if that's what you're saying, it justifies it. Oh, okay. Then, wow, Dick Cheney, Colin Powell, John Kerry, Bush, Obama, Biden, all of them should just get gunned in the back because they're war criminals. They killed millions of people with all their drone strikes and corruption. And Mike Pompeo, we should just take him out. Then we should just get shot in the back, right? I skipped your super chat. Where did I skip your super chat, Mona? Not applicable. Police recruited to catch slaves and bust unions. Yep. Shave your knuckles for justice. Where, Mona? I thought I read your super chat. Hold on. don't think I missed it. I thought I read it already, Mona. Mona Carmona. Yeah, Mona Carmona. Can you and Richie sing together? Shaving Knuckles for Justice. I don't know about that. Here's see if Rich wants to sing. So yes. All right. I don't know what happened. Richard was just here. All right. 541 likes, folks. Let's get the likes up there. Let's get the likes up there, kids. Zachary Tatyan, Zachary Shaving Knuckles for Justice, said all cops are bastards to my family and called me ridiculous. Wow. KIU. I know. Padres and Marlins and Major League Baseball boycotting as well. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, Mona, I read your super chat. I don't think we're going to be able to sing. I didn't skip it. It just, I was talking so much that the way StreamYard is it scrolls so fast that if I don't catch it, I can't put it on the screen, but I still was able to read it. Okay, here we go. Let's bring Richard on the show, everybody. Let me read this real quick. Big Baby Zuba, Shaving Knuckles for Justice, also based off British police. One reason why it sucks. All right, thank you, Big Baby. Here we go. Let's bring him on to the show. Richard Medhurst, ladies and gentlemen, who's been on the show several months ago. It's great to have him back.
Hello, hello. How are we doing?
Hey, man. We're good, brother. How you doing?
I'm good, Graham. I'm good. It's such a pleasure to be on again and to see you. I was listening to the whole conversation with Jordan from Status Quo. That was dope. That was really good. And how are you doing, man? How are you doing?
You know, I'm okay. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood. I'm here with Richard Medhurst, and yeah, Richard, it's been a crazy. It's just we're in insane times, and
Definitely.
You know, we focused a lot recently on the show about the awful shooting of Jacob Blake, and we've talked about the two conventions. But I wanted to bring you on the show because there was this several weeks ago bombing or explosion in Beirut, and I'm not as up to speed on the Middle East. And so, you know, obviously the American corporate media, they barely cover this stuff at all.
There you go.
You know, we have,
first issue.
Yeah, we have to scramble to find indie journalists and people that are on the ground and stuff like that. So what have you learned or heard about that explosion since it happened, and what literally and figuratively has been the fallout from it?
So, I mean, first of all, I'm not Lebanese. I'm Syrian, but people need to understand that, you know, Lebanon and Syria, they have very, very tight history. And I mean, even just in terms of language, and, you know, I can understand a Lebanese person in Arabic 100% compared to other dialects, and culturally, historically, geographically as well. I mean, Damascus to Beirut is like an hour, 2 hours drive. So what happens in Beirut impacts Damascus and Syria, and I'll get to that in a second. But in regards to this explosion, I mean, when I covered it initially, you know, I was just in shock. I mean, I've been to Beirut, I've been to Lebanon like a million times. More times than I can count. My parents worked there in the UNIFIL mission on the border with South Lebanon, UN peacekeeping mission. So, you know, that was heartbreaking. And my mom, she got family that don't live too far from the actual port. So they're, I don't know how far, like 10, 15 minutes. You know, thankfully they're okay. But a lot of Syrians died in that too. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but I think 1/5 or a quarter of the casualties were Syrian.
Really?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you always have trade and people and goods and just everything moving between Lebanon and Syria, regardless. But I mean, you even among the casualties, you have people who escape war. Like they literally escape the war to go live there, and then they end up dying in an accident. It's so tragic. It really is. In every case. But it just shows you how the Middle East is never left alone, unfortunately. And my initial reaction, my first reaction. I thought it was Israel. Dude, if you understand how many times Lebanon has been attacked by Israel, if you understand how many times Syria has been attacked by Israel, that's the first thing you would think of. And so you have to keep in mind, this was just a day or two after Israel had conducted airstrikes on the Golan Heights, so inside of Syria. Mm-hmm. And they had the week before that, they had a skirmish with Hezbollah on the Lebanese border, but then it turned out that it was just IDF firing at each other. Just they didn't publish any footage of the incident, and I mean, Hezbollah are not afraid. Like if they conducted an operation, they would have said so. So you got to look at the context that Israel was doing airstrikes in Syria. They've done hundreds of airstrikes in Syria by their own admission in the last couple of years, taking advantage of the war. That they just violate Syria's sovereignty over and over again, every week almost, and Lebanese sovereignty as well. And as I said, you had this little skirmish on the border with Hezbollah, allegedly. And you got to keep in mind that back in June and July, you had lots of weird things happening in Iran as well. I mean, the nuclear research facility in Natanz was sabotaged, and that's 99.9% Israel. Just like they sabotaged the centrifuges with the Stuxnet virus with the CIA. So, I mean, that's like 99.9% Israel. You had other industrial accidents, though. If you recall, I don't know if you heard about this. There was a day where you had like 7 ships on fire just all of a sudden. And so many weird industrial accidents all the time inside of Iran. And so given the IDF and the Mossad's history of conducting operations, not admitting to them most of the time, right? They don't usually admit to these operations, conducting acts of sabotage, assassinations. I mean, this is their modus operandi. So that's what came to my mind, right? And you had a lot of people inside of Lebanon that were speculating in the first day, in the first hours after that, just as I was, what was going on, because it's very unclear. And you had people trying to blame Hezbollah, because they want to use, they use any kind of incident to blame anything on Hezbollah. It landed on, an asteroid crashed into the earth, they would blame it on Hezbollah. So Lebanon is a very complex political spectrum. So they were saying things like, oh, well, if it is Israel, maybe it's because Hezbollah were storing weapons inside of the port. They had a weapons cache, and so Israel targeted that. And so look at how they endanger Lebanon. This is the argument you always hear from people who are anti-Hezbollah. Another thing that I heard was that Hezbollah are the ones who put the ammonium nitrate there in the first place, which is also another spectacular conspiracy theory.
Right. It's everybody stores an ammonium nitrate. So
yeah,
the place that, let's just get the specifics, or at least what we know. So the place that was hit, explain what was hit and what supposedly was in it that created this massive, it was
enormous.
Yeah, it was enormous. The shockwave that went all through Beirut. So what was the—
Yeah, you heard this thing in South Lebanon. Like they heard it in Cyprus. Wow. Over 100 miles away. That's how big of an explosion this was. Insane. We're talking 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate. And again, I'm not a chemist or a scientist, but my understanding is that you had the ammonium nitrate being stored there for 6 years, give or take 6 years. And the way this came about, that this came to be, you had a ship on its way to Mozambique, if I recall correctly. And, the Lebanese port authorities confiscated the ammonium nitrate, and due to corruption, negligence, who knows, it was stored for such a long period, as I said, a couple of years, and also stored in an insecure manner, right? And again, it's still not clear what happened, because you had a fire going off as well, and there were also workers doing some welding work and soldering and things like that. And so you have people saying, "Oh, it's the fireworks that started the reaction, or it's the soldering." Again, I'm not qualified to speak on that, what exactly triggered it, but just the fact that it was left there for so long, this kind of negligence, I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think that's really good. And so, it really does speak to the situation the Middle East is put in, because I want people to understand something. Like, it's really easy to look at the Middle East and say, like, oh, there's always stuff happening, industrial accidents, explosions, wars, and everything. Yeah, but why did it get to this point?
Right.
Why are these countries in this peril? It's because they haven't been left alone. If you come and plunder these lands for hundreds of years, you put them under Ottoman rule for 400 years, right? And then the French and the British come in and start plundering and colonizing and carving up and just inventing countries. And then Israel comes and starts bombing and invading every one of their neighbors. I mean, and then America comes in and starts doing the same thing. Like, they're not left alone to develop. And so you end up with shit like this, right? You end up with higher rates of corruption, higher rates of negligence, higher going wrong, because the infrastructure has not been allowed to develop, because there's constant war and sanctions. And the way that the West has been trying to capitalize off of this is unreal. I mean, right in the wake of the explosion, you have the French president, Emmanuel Macron, who comes and visits Lebanon, getting off of his plane like he's some colonialist from, the 18th century. I swear to God, I got such a Charles de Gaulle vibe from him. Charles de Gaulle, he always go to Africa and he gets off the plane like, oh, the white man is here. This. Yeah, exactly. And immediately, he goes and does a fundraiser with the UN, and they get like $300 million. And you might be thinking like, wow, okay, that's good. That's generous. Fine. But then you find that there are strings attached, as usual. And so, he goes and meets with all of the political factions. Lebanon is really complicated, man. I'm not like, I don't even want to get into it now, but he goes and meets with everything.
I want to make this real quick for
sure.
my viewers who might not be as familiar with the Middle East. And I want to say everything you just described to the viewers here, doesn't that sound familiar to like Native American land in the US and the inner cities that have been so messed with and for centuries? That then it's like, wow, they're crime and they did this and they loot and they riot, because they haven't been given the same opportunities. They haven't been given all of
exactly.
And so this is what the result. Why are they all in gangs? Because there's no jobs or whatever those like right-wing
opportunities.
There's no opportunities. There's no job. I got into trouble when I was in high school, but I was a middle-class white kid, and it was a foregone conclusion that my college was paid for. It was a foregone conclusion. Now, if I grew in a poor inner city area or like on a native reservation in the States, or if I grew up in one of these Middle Eastern countries that had the audacity of putting its land above American oil, then I would maybe join ISIS, Hezbollah, because again, it's the same very similar economic model. There's nothing else to do. And I would say, I would make the same conclusion too, of like the poor working class white that joins the Klan. Everything's been eviscerated. Everything's been taken away. And I know I'm painting with very, very specific. Like,
no, go ahead. It's important for people to get the underlying point here.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm painting with a very general brush, and we can get into the specifics of each one of these environments, and of course. But I just want to show that overall, you just see how this, and look, colonialism is the early stages of capitalism, and so we've been exploiting land, indigenous people, slave labor, resources. We've been doing this for centuries, and it's like this is the culmination of everything. So I just want to put that framework for the audience. So the Middle East is so crazy and complicated. Yes, there are a lot of complicated things, but the overall screwing with it is the same thing. It's like, wow, boy, these Native Americans, or they're all criminals and they're all doing this. Yeah, because everything has been taken away from them, and no opportunities and everything like that. So I want to put that framework out there for anybody in the West who's not who's paying attention to domestic policy and domestic shortcomings and domestic problems.
Yeah, I mean,
genocide. But go ahead, back to
you can. That's a very good point, because you can definitely draw parallels. Although the one thing I would contrast is that if you want to compare or draw a parallel between the KKK and ISIS, that is a very accurate one. Hezbollah is completely different, though. I mean, Hezbollah is a resistance movement. I mean, in the Western media, they paint it as if, oh yeah, they're a terrorist organization and they're a threat to regional stability. Hezbollah only exists because Israel has invaded Lebanon so many times, and it's the only reason that South Lebanon is part of Lebanon now. You know, people tend to forget that the Lebanese army were useless. The Arab nations, you know, not all of them even came to the Palestinians' aid, never mind the Lebanese. And so, you know, Hezbollah liberated South Lebanon in the year 2000 after 15, 20 years of Israeli occupation. So, I mean, of course they would call it a terrorist organization, but it got nothing to do with ISIS. I mean, they were in Syria fighting ISIS. That you know, if Hezbollah and Iran did not come and help in Syria, and if Russia did not help, you know, dude, there would be a black flag over Damascus right now. That's some real stuff. Like that's not an exaggeration. But definitely everything else you said, like this idea and the notion that you know, it's so easy. Of course, it's easy to just point fingers and be like, oh, these people are unruly, or you know, they're restless, and then conveniently leave out the part that you made them unrestless.
Yeah, you
them of opportunities and economic freedom and self-governance.
Yeah, you took away their democracy when you whatever. I mean, we Mossadegh in Iran. I've talked about him numerous times. Democratically elected, want to nationalize the oil, and then we put the Shah of Iran in there, who tortured his own people. Like, we created that. We helped foster Islamic fundamentalism. I mean, we most people just want to live and raise their families and go to school and have a nice life. They don't want to join some radical movement. They're forced into that. You get radicalized. I got radicalized.
Yeah, and they take advantage of this, right? You know, I mean, they take advantage of this to radicalize people and galvanize them, and you know, force them into a situation where they just you know, you end up having as you said, people being recruited into things like the KKK or ISIS because, you know, they essentially they've been denied opportunities, brainwashed, and then they get sucked into it. And you have a whole fucking generation of terrorists then that are being actually used as pawns and just, you know, massacring their own people. It's unreal. Like the degree of evil involved in it is really unbelievable. And as you said, like the U.S. is handbook on how to finance opposition and terrorist groups abroad, right? They're experts at this, and I'm not just talking about Afghanistan, obviously the Mujahideen, but you know, as you mentioned, in Africa, I mean, they're involved everywhere, man. My parents were serving in Angola and Namibia, and that even in Angola they were involved, like all over the place, and in Syria right now as well. And you know, I just wanted to just to follow up on what's going on in Lebanon. Immediately, you have all of these countries swooping in like vultures to capitalize. Like the French president, Emmanuel Macron, he's like, we don't want any Iranian influence, meaning we don't want Hezbollah to have any part in a future government. And it's just like, well, hold on a second. You were saying you're here to provide aid a second ago. Now you're dictating political terms on how to run the country? What? And it's not just him. You also got the IMF saying the same thing. The IMF have been screwing over Lebanon for ages, and they were already denying them money months ago. You got to keep in mind that Lebanon's in an economic crisis since months, right? Since last year almost, and widespread corruption. And so they're accentuating that and aggravating it by saying, again, they reaffirmed that last week. The IMF came out and said, look, we're not giving you any money unless we see structural reforms, meaning we want you to bend it to Uncle Sam, of course. And, you know, the French brought 700 troops already into Lebanon, and the British delivered aid, but conveniently it's on, I think it was HMS Belfast. I can't remember which ship from the Royal Navy, but, you know, they're delivering humanitarian aid with troops. You don't need the troops to do that, but they're just using it as an excuse to park their ships now in Beirut. It's unreal.
And so, oh God, the IMF. Oh man, we could do a whole hour-long show on the IMF. And
best bet.
One of the situations too, you're saying there was all this economic problems prior to the pandemic, which I'm sure the pandemic, there's no way it's helped anybody's economy unless you're like Walmart or Amazon. So, yeah. I mean, that's again, I'm going to draw the same parallel here because I always tell my audience, connect the dots and follow the money. So we had all this economic problems in America before the pandemic, and we had 60% of the country couldn't afford a $500 to $1,000 agency.
Yeah.
All these, the car loan bubble, the student loan bubble, the housing bubble, all these bubbles were getting bigger and bigger in January and February before the pandemic. And now it's like, these skirmishes that we've had, and, you know, it's the we're heading down this road for race war, because the ruling class is propping that up for us to fight with each other and pushing that because they don't want everybody to unite. If the white nationalists and the working class people, black, white, Latino, Asian, whatever, all got together and went, hey, they're screwing us over, then there's not going to be, then they're going to show up on a Capitol building. Then a bunch of, then there's going to be 1 million people with guns walking into Congress and saying, you're done. Pelosi, you're done. Mitch McConnell, you're done. So it's, again, very similar to what, has been going on in Lebanon. So to put that framework to everybody, but then, so all those situations were in place. And then this explosion happened. Do we know if it was an explosion? Do we know if it was a rocket attack? What do we know about it?
So I think it was just an accident, an industrial accident. Again, I'm not a scientist. And another thing. Now, again, I don't want to put on a tinfoil hat here exactly, but I don't know if a lot of people have heard of this. Back in the Cold War, the Israelis, the Mossad, they sent in a spy into Syria. His real name was Eli Cohen, but his cover name was Amin Thabit, and he posed as an expat from Argentina because you had a huge Syrian community in Argentina, and so he made up this story about being a rich businessman, and he gets into Syria and leads a very lavish life, starts holding these huge parties, becoming friends with generals and ministers and everything, and he almost became the fucking defense minister. I want that to sink in. An Israeli spy almost became the Syrian defense minister. Now but my point here is that the Mossad are experts and they are cold and ruthless at infiltrating and sabotaging other countries. So I mean, like if you cannot prove to me that you don't have people in the Lebanese government that are purposely being negligent and letting things like this happen and letting infrastructure deteriorate. You can't tell me that that's not the case. I mean, you just look at their MO and how they operate. They don't care. They'll do anything. This blast is nothing to them. I mean, you even had one of their ministers jubilant about it. So you got to keep that in mind. You got to keep history in mind.
So where
tinfoil hat comes off.
Look, you want to start talking about Mossad, we can talk about the 180 some Mossad agents that are illegally operating in the United States right now. I was told that by John Kiriakou last summer, former CIA agent and whistleblower, not to mention Ghislaine Maxwell's ties to Mossad and her father. So, I mean, like, not shocking what you're saying, but now,
yeah, I mean, just 1 second. Just sorry to interrupt, but I just want to drive home this point. It's very easy to say, like, oh, you're just looking for any excuse to blame Israel. You look at the war in 2006, man. I was next door. I was an hour away in Damascus watching that war. They were purposely targeting Lebanese infrastructure. They bombed the crap out of it. They bombed the fucking airport. Everything, man. And Netanyahu goes to the UN, to the General Assembly, and says, oh, look at the Beirut port. They got weapons there, missiles. Man, Israel has no problem targeting infrastructure and sabotaging. That's their modus operandi. So it's not, beyond the pale to think of these things as highly likely. It really isn't. And that's why they're so good at this stuff, because people are like, nah, you just crazy. That's
well, let's talk about now, how does it, with all these economic problems and the decades, if not centuries of meddling and all that, what is going to happen with Lebanon now? Like, well, how do you see this moving forward?
Man, they've nailed this colonialist, imperialist stuff down to a science. I mean, what's happening right now in Lebanon, as you said, you got COVID impacting all economies everywhere and giving everybody a hard time. That's already one issue to deal with. But right now, you have the Caesar Act sanctions that are being imposed on Syria. And these are not just some of the most brutal sanctions imposed on Syria, but imposed ever. I mean, the United States and the West failed in their regime change war. It didn't work. Most of the countries back under the control of the government, you got small pockets in Deir ez-Zor and Hasakeh and this U.S. airbase at Tanaf, and then Idlib is the main terrorist stronghold that's left, right? You got like 20,000 jihadists there. But most of the country is back under Syrian control. So now the U.S. foreign policy in regards to Syria is scorched earth. They just want to burn it down. and literally they're burning oil. They're letting the Turks cut off the water and not pressure them at all. Remember, Turkey's a NATO ally, and they're cutting off water right now for like the 16th time. I'm not kidding. That's not hyperbole. It's like the 10th to 16th time. It depends on how, which ones you want to count. Sometimes they do it for a few days. Sometimes it goes on for weeks. Right now, it's been going on for 2 weeks. People in Hasake, 1 million people with no water, and the U.S. is conveniently quiet. And so it's a scorched earth policy. They're depriving the Syrian people of food, water, oil, and revenue, and then on top of it, imposing these sanctions which prevent reconstruction. They're like, screw you, we're not even going to let you rebuild.
Right.
We're not even going to invest in Syria. Any bank, any institution, any company that comes to try and help you in reconstruction in any capacity, we will sanction them. They're trying to really bring Syria to her knees even more. And this impacts Lebanon. People got to understand, man, because of the sanctions before, not just the Caesar Act sanctions from June 17th this year, you already had previous sanctions, a lot of trade was going through Lebanon. Right? Because people had to put their dollars, all the businessmen, the businesses, they'd keep their money and their capital and flowing through Lebanese banks. And so Lebanon, they're under their own economic crisis. They are also having hyperinflation, not as bad as in Syria, but still nonetheless. And, Beirut, Lebanon imports 80% of their goods. And the Beirut port was crucial, not just for Lebanon, but also for Damascus, for Syria and for Syria's future reconstruction. So this explosion that happened is a huge disaster for both these countries. And the sanctions, the Caesar Act sanctions, also a huge disaster for Lebanon, because not only are Syrian goods and capital flowing through Lebanon and Beirut's banks, but your people also rely on Syria for the trade, because Lebanon is on the coast, but it's surrounded by Syria in terms of its eastern side. So, these two countries depend on each other very, very, very heavily. And if one is in pain, if one of these countries is hurting, the other one will hurt too. And it's just evil that, they're putting these sanctions to kill off and starve and make the Syrian people suffer, and by extension, the Lebanese, and now capitalizing off of this situation in Lebanon to bring in troops, impose conditions and reforms, and mold Lebanon to their liking, and that will also impact Syria, right? It's disgusting, like how calculated and cold it is. It really is, man.
Yeah, and of course, I'm sure so much of it has to do with the oil and the petrodollar and the pipeline.
Oh, you bet.
That's such a point. Well, Richard,
they're taking oil now from Hasake, from Syria. Yeah. Yeah, you got U.S. So this was Mike Pompeo talking to Lindsey Graham 2 weeks ago in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and he confirmed to him that they struck a deal with the Syrian Democratic Forces. So this is a Kurdish-led coalition, and up in northeastern Syria and Hasake, you have the Sueda oil fields. Those are some of the biggest, and then down in Deir ez-Zor you have the Al Omar oil fields, also some of the biggest. And unsurprisingly, that's exactly where the American troops are. So this company called Delta Crescent Energy is now going to be plundering that oil. And I think, if I recall correctly, it's $30 million a day of revenue. And oil in general used to account for 25% of the Syrian government's revenue. So I mean, you're cutting off, you're choking the Syrian people of much needed revenue in the middle of a war. It's so evil. And yeah, of course, it's all about the oil.
We've been sanctioning Iran during a pandemic, and we've made it harder for them to deal with COVID-19. I mean, look what we're doing in Venezuela. It's all about oil. It's just sinister. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, so
yeah, definitely. Just one last point. It's not just about the oil inside of Syria, but like any kind of action performed against Damascus is always in part aimed at Tehran as well, because they know that Iran and Syria are close. Iran and Syria both support the Palestinian cause. They both support Hezbollah, Hamas. So for them, crapping all over Syria means crapping all over Iran and getting closer towards, so there you go.
Like George Carlin said, America's not a country. We're a oil company with an army.
Very well put.
It's basically So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Political Vigilante. I'm here with Richard Medhurst. I want to ask you, because I'm asking all the indie journalists this question. I don't know how much of this you're paying attention to, but obviously we have this complete train wreck of these lesser of two rapists running for president in this complete debacle of a country. Yeah, I mean, somebody in the chat just with the RNC convention showed oil refineries over the words "our way of life." Oh boy. Well, how do you see, if you're paying attention to this, how do you see the draft Jesse movement of Jesse Ventura? Just too much of a long shot?
Yeah, look, man.
Or what do you think?
Jesse Ventura. So the first thing that I looked up about it, I mean, of course I know his films, but like politically speaking, I know he was a mayor and a governor, and I was curious about his policy towards Syria and the Middle East. So, I went in, I looked, and I listened to him, and I was pleasantly surprised because, I mean, I already knew Jesse Ventura is like way better than the political trash ruling Washington, but he gave some solid answers and not the typical crap that you will hear from both parties. I was surprised with that. That was good. I don't know what his position is. I'm not too familiar with his position on Palestine and the Israeli occupation. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I'm not familiar with. I don't know yet. But in general, man, he's leagues ahead of either of these goons, Biden and Trump. Of course. I mean, I think that if I'm not mistaken, he can't register on the ballot in all of the 50 states, but he can do, like, it's technically still possible for him to get elected. He could get enough
39
votes in the Electoral College, right?
Yeah, there's 39 states that if the draft Jesse movement is successful, can get him on as a write-in candidate, because you can't just write anybody in. You have to be approved in the write-in. It just shows you how they're doing everything in their power to stop any sort of popular person from rising up. So they can get him on. The draft Jesse movement can get him on 39 states ballots. If they do that, that's 400 electoral votes. So he could win, or at least get, I mean, I don't know, if he got on the debate stage with Trump and Biden, he would clean them up. And he would talk, because he's a true, like, he's an ex-Navy SEAL, not just a pro wrestler, Navy SEAL. So he's very anti-war. And if you watch his show, The World According to Jesse on RT, which he's very anti-war, he's very anti-interventionist. He understands the crimes of the oil companies and the military-industrial complex. And his policy towards the Middle East that he's studied pretty extensively would be like the right one, like anti-interventionist. And he also understands climate collapse. So he would be like, we're not going to bomb these countries for oil because we're going to get everybody to stop using oil. Like,
thank you. Exactly.
How do you end all the craziness in the Middle East? It's been around for centuries. No, we've been meddling for centuries. And if we said, hey, we can't use oil anymore, we're not going to bomb you, we're not going to sanction you, we just need everybody to get on board the way the whole world got on board with dealing with COVID. We would say, hey, Iran, Syria, keep it in the ground. We don't want to use it. Like, we want to save the planet. You guys get to run your life the way you want to love it. The whole countries, China, Russia, we all got to be on board with saving the planet.
Yeah, the thing is, China, if I'm not mistaken, they manufacture about 40% of all green tech, solar panels, batteries, everything. They already understand the game. They're leagues ahead. They're leaving everybody behind in the dust. And of course, I mean, they have huge issues with pollution and stuff, but you can see that they are planning ahead for the future, Belt and Road Initiative, everything. And meanwhile, I think the oil companies and executives, they know what you're saying and what I'm saying, but they want to squeeze every single last drop out of the earth and make every last dime they can before they go on to the green industry, if we even have a planet left. So I think that's the problem. But going back to Jesse Ventura, man, I think his book, what was it called again? 63 documents the U.S. government doesn't want you to see. That's a great one. I really do appreciate and value the anti-interventionist stance, because that's crucial to it's what you need to diametrically oppose this imperialist, colonialist, neo-colonialist mentality and foreign policy. You have to be. And also in terms of sanctions, right? Not just actually bombing people, but the sanctions that quit, they kill people too. And like I said, that's something I really always check about foreign policy with candidates. So like, I mean, I'm not too familiar though with how he would get on the ballot, because you said you need to be approved to get on the ballot in each state, right? So how does that get done exactly? Like what can be done to accomplish that?
Draft Jesse website. And I believe it's draftjesse.com. And on there shows you what needs to happen. You got to get a certain number of electors in each state to get him on the ballot in these 39 states. So if you go to the Draft Jesse website, it's very much laid out for anybody. And if you live in one of these 39 states, this is a great way to get involved. He's supposed to speak this Sunday, the 30th, at the Movement for a People's Party convention, which I believe is at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So
I will be watching that.
Yeah, that's how people in the states can get involved and get him on the ballot. And if he just found out about the Draft Jesse movement like a week ago, and he's kind of pleasantly surprised. About a month or so ago, he said, "Oh, I'm not going to run." Now he's like, "Well, I don't know, I might." And that might, he's going to be at movement. Nina Turner's going to be at movement. Chris Hedges is going to be at movement. So there's the country is descending into a complete civil war that is being fueled by the ruling class and the corporate media that is run by the oligarchs, right? Because they need us divided. And capitalism is very good at keeping people divided along lines of race and ideology rather than them uniting along the lines of class. Because
that's true. They want to divide people domestically and internationally. That's why the colonial countries into smaller, tinier things and support separatist movements anywhere they can.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the working class white person, the white nationalist has more in common with a working class person of color in this country than they do with a rich oligarch, Donald Trump or whatever. They just don't know that.
They just don't understand it. Yeah.
Understand it, that this is really what we are in is class warfare, but they think we've been told and pushed into a race war, because if everybody lines up along class, well, then it's 99% versus a handful of oligarchs, and they're done for. They're done for. They're swinging from trees. It's over. And so that's why they have to divide us. So the thing about if you were to do these, if Jesse Ventura were to somehow become president, and again, I'm not naive. I know it's a long shot, but if we're to become president and do what we were talking about, we'd like to see in the Middle East. First of all, and I want to explain this to Americans, it makes America safer, actually, because we're not bombing and creating more terrorists. People don't want to be terrorists. People don't want to blow themselves up. They want to live a nice, normal life. And if you gave them that life, so not only that, we're stopping to spend all the money on all of these 7 wars and all this sanctioning, all these countries we're bombing. We're not spending it on that. We're spending it here at home, infrastructure. We're not in the Middle East, so we're not creating more terrorists. And then the whole world gets together to fix the planet. The whole world gets together and stops fighting with each other. So like,
as you said, this has a direct impact on domestic things. And that's why I always highlight and focus and try to bring people's attention to foreign policy, because it's like, 60% of discretionary spending is going towards the military. Yeah. I mean, even if it was just 1%, it's still predatory and violent and aggressive in nature. So it's wrong by definition, by default. But nonetheless, as you said, like the wealthiest nation on the face of the planet should not have people going hungry or without health care or, can't even afford a medical emergency and go without going bankrupt. This is not okay. This is unacceptable. And ceasing this predatory, aggressive imperialism is going to directly benefit everybody at home. Of course, this is true for any kind of nation or place. Definitely. And I wish people need to understand that. Then they would be really, like, oh shit, now I understand.
Yeah. Well, they
would take a more active interest in it.
We're deliberately propagandized and misled and distracted. We're divided, distracted. They keep us divided, distracted, afraid. That is the goal. And the corporate media does a fantastic job, and not just the news, but I mean, movies, TV shows, whatever. They do a fantastic job. Even here,
they literally subsidize it. The Pentagon will give you tanks for free,
Yeah. Oh, you make a war movie that shows how great America is and the CIA is wonderful and American exceptionalism. We'll give you F-16s. We'll do everything. You won't have to pay us a nickel. So Richard, thank you for taking time out today, for coming on the show. Where can people follow
Always.
and subscribe and watch what you're doing?
They can go to youtube.com/Richard Medhurst or rockfin.com/Richard Medhurst. And if you want to look me up on Twitter, just type in a search Richard Medhurst. I will come up immediately, and you can follow my work and my videos and everything. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And it's always a pleasure being on the show. Seriously, thank you for having me on, man. Always.
And you also cover a lot about Palestine, which I don't really cover that because I don't know enough about it, and I apologize
Man,
for covering enough.
I don't blame you because it is propagandized on purpose all over the place, and on top of it, the attacks are so regular you can't even keep up. I'm not like, that's not hyperbole or exaggeration. They've been bombing Gaza for 10 days in a row now.
Jesus.
I can't keep up with the number of airstrikes. I'm just talking about this. Like, never mind the wars in 2014. In the flotillas that were coming and they were just boarding ships like pirates and throwing civilians overboard. I mean, it's just so many atrocities happening all of the time. It's exhausting. To keep up with that. I don't blame you. And it's also horrible having to watch your people die every single day like that. It's unreal, man. Like, I just one last note, that I want to say, because I don't believe in conflating or drawing away and mixing together like both struggles. What I mean by that is, like, if you look at the Black Lives Matter struggle in the United States and the racial inequality, I mean, this goes back hundreds of years, right? We got genocide and we got slavery and we got segregation and all these things. And the Palestinian struggle, like, each of these things, they're their own attention and activism and resources and justice, right? But I would like to draw people's attention to the fact that, like, what you see in the streets in the US, Palestinians are living that every day, and the media never says a goddamn word. And they get, I mean, could you imagine if the US Air Force conducted airstrikes on people right now protesting? That's what Israel does. They pick off people with snipers. If you've seen Abby Martin's films, they're just protesting and they were picking them up with snipers and then using chemical weapons on them. Like, it's on a whole other level and no one talks about it. And so I just hope, I really implore people to look into that more and see what the media is hiding from them, because anyone with a conscience would be horrified to see what's happening there, But once again, both struggles, we need to give them their deserved activism and attention and time and due justice. So yeah.
And there's several things here. There's also a lot of ex-Israeli soldiers that are speaking out like, this ain't right, man. I think it's called Break the Silence or something.
Yeah.
And so they're realizing this isn't right. And I want to ask you this before you go. Because what I'm watching happening in the United States, I'm like, our oppressive police department and federal troops, like what has been happening just the last 2 nights in Kenosha, Wisconsin, what happened for weeks in Portland and Seattle and Minneapolis and Los Angeles and all these cities. I feel like we're very close to the American people being, and activists being treated the way Palestinians are being treated by the Israeli army. Do you see that happening here?
I mean, U.S. cops are literally trained by Israelis. They have a grant program. Excuse me, I do not remember which state it was exactly. They actually have several of them. So please just Google the grant programs. You will see that the universities offer this. How nice. Like, they have grant programs where police departments can sign up and then they go and receive training from Israeli border police or the IDF. And you got to remember, the IDF, Israeli police, Israeli border police, they're an occupation force. By being on Palestinian land, they are committing oppression. By exiling people, kicking them out of their homes for 72 years, that's ethnic cleansing. By definition, that's the textbook definition of ethnic cleansing. Never mind genocide and brutalization. What they did to George Floyd, cutting off someone's oxygen supply, putting your knee on their neck. That's an Israeli tactic that is used every single day in Israel, in the Israeli occupation against Palestinians. Every day, and no one hears about it. No one cares about it. And just around the same time they killed George Floyd, they killed an autistic Palestinian man. His name was Iyad Hala. No one covered it in the West. Man, my heart broke watching his mother cry about that. He's autistic. They put 3 rounds with an M16 into his chest at point blank range after his teacher told the fucking soldiers he has autism and there's no weapon. Why are you chasing him? And why did you shoot him in the leg? They just executed him. No one talks about it. No cops are prosecuted. We don't know their names. No one's been jailed. No trial. And then they raided his parents' house. They sent the Shin Bet, which is the Israeli equivalent of the FBI, to raid his family's house after they executed their fucking son because they're trying to find something incriminating. And they didn't even let them have the body for a few days. I mean, just unbelievable. And crickets all over the planet, crickets. And that's just one example. And how can you look at that and not be heartbroken, man? And these people are trained in U.S. cops. And in reverse, the U.S. is paying for the Israeli occupation. Literally, Obama and Biden, they gave him $38 billion in military aid over 10 years. That's U.S. money going towards genocide. So everybody should be aware. They have a moral duty to be outraged about this. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know how anyone can look at this and not be angry. It's so heartbreaking. It really is. It really is, man.
Well, thank you for shedding light on it, drawing the parallel between what's happening here with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and now Jacob Blake and what's happening in Palestine from the Israeli army. So thank you, Richard.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me on the show, brother. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
And I want to tell everybody, Richard and I are both on Rockfin, which is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. So for $10, you get all of Richard's bonus content, all of my bonus content, Nico House, Kim Iverson, Jimmy Dore, Ron Placone, Convo,
Exactly.
on down the line. The Dollop is just adding it. So, we're trying to get more people on that platform. So Richard, thank you for taking time to come on the show today.
Of course. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, man. You're making Gotham great again, Richard. We'll talk to you soon, brother.
Shave your knuckles for justice. Bye-bye.
Richard Medhurst, everybody. Fantastic interview. Yeah, we got people out there doing real work, man. Richard and Jordan Chariton. So, yeah, let me read. I'm hungry, so I'm going to read some. Yeah, I'm glad everybody liked Richard. And hit the subscribe button if you're a Richard Medhurst fan and you're new to my show. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button. All those things help. If you're new to Richard, if you're a fan of mine, you already subscribed, make sure you subscribe to Richard's channel. Go to rockfin.com. You can sign up for free. And if you just in liking videos gives us all a little cryptocurrency. If you want to spend the $10 a month, go to rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, endorse my channel, like Richard's videos, and that $10 a month, we all get a little residual income from that, and we're paid in cryptocurrency. So it's a great way to support the show. Only way to stop U.S. militarization is to break the bank. Well, I'm learning more and more about crypto, and I'm not going to do it today, but I'm going to have some more crypto experts on here about the revolutionary tactic of getting away from centralized banks like the Federal Reserve and the IMF and going to cryptocurrency, like how Bitcoin is decentralized. You want to sanction a country? It doesn't matter if everybody's using crypto. There's nothing you can do because everybody's using crypto. It protects all of us. There is an economic collapse coming. Move some of your money into crypto. That's my advice. I'm hearing this from all these experts. Watch Max Kaiser, the Kaiser Report. I mean, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, this wide spectrum of people are saying this. Anyway, we're going to talk about that later, but let me go through the super chats. Sparky, shave your knuckles for justice. Iris melancholy may give you a need to hate. All right. Yeah, LA. I'm so glad so many of you liked having Richard on. It was great. It's cool, man. He's doing great work, and that's what I try to do. Like, Jordan is covering these conventions. Richard is covering the Middle East. He's Syrian, so he knows more about it. Whitney Webb really covering Epstein. Whatever. I try to bring experts on the show. Sparky, boom. Graham, reach out to the white working class rather than insinuating that they're all white supremacists. Fiorella, Fred Hampton, and I did. Yeah, okay. No, I will. I know they're not all white supremacists. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we need to unify somehow. And they would be less likely, the ones that are on that side of the spectrum, the white nationalists. Some of them might just be too far gone, but some of them have just been propagandized. And yeah, I'll try to reach out more. I appreciate that, Sparky. I'll do that. Plant Powered Radio. What's up, Melissa H? What's up, Backyard Politics? Thank you, Kate, for being the moderator. All right. Malcolm Marzo, Malcolm, Shave Your Knuckles for Justice. Thank you for your service from a veteran of the Vietnam War crime. Thanks, Malcolm. I know, man. I'm trying my best, brother. I don't understand crypto at all. I can't put money into something like that without a detailed explanation of it. Okay, go to Bitcoin.com's YouTube channel. They literally have a Bitcoin 101 and it just really starts explaining it. So start watching those videos. I get it. I'm not going to I wouldn't throw money into something I didn't understand. That's why I've been watching more videos on crypto to understand what it is. That's why I had Rosie Tran on the show like a month or so ago, and I'm going to have more crypto people on the show so I know more about it. It was like when I first learned about MMT 2 years ago from Citizens Media TV from Jeff Epstein, not the paper t-shirt one. Yeah. Matt at Shaving Knuckles for Justice. Have a good break, dude. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. Mana Talk, what's up? Graham, please take Ron surfing soon. And when you get a chance, watch plandemicseries.com #2. Pretty compelling stuff. All right, Mana Talk. You got that, brother. Aloha, my friend. Aloha. And there's a bunch of super chats I missed. There's a bunch of super chats I missed. Let me get that. Okay. Big Baby Zuba, Shave Your Knuckles for Justice. The Detroit Lions took a day off to talk about M for Black Lives Matter. Oh, they're taking to talk about. Oh, wow. Is that what's happening? All the sports leagues are like taking time off or just like stop playing. That's bold. Good. Mary Bishop, Mary, Shave Your Knuckles for Justice. This is for Charles de Gaulle and the white man is here comment. Sublime. Right on. Sam D, what's up, Sam? I hope everything's good down in Melbourne. Remember surfing in Oz? Those were simpler times, mate. Tell us a story about surfing in Australia. None of that bodacious South Cali talk, though. Oh, well, I'll give you a couple surfing in Oz stories. First, the longest wave I've ever caught was in 2012, just outside of Adelaide. I had done a show the night before, I think at the Rhino Room, maybe, which is my friend Craig Egan's room. Is a funny comic, and he's just been like established the scene in Adelaide, which is a tough market. And then someone who was at the show, I didn't have a car, took me kind of way outside of Adelaide a little bit, got rented a board. It's kind of a windy, maybe one or two people out in the water. It wasn't like a ideal day. And I caught this wave, and I swear to God, I took it for 200 yards. I mean, I was just on a wave going, oh, it was like one of the most amazing waves I've ever had in my life. So that's I think the first time I surfed in Australia, and it was awesome. This past trip that Ron and I took in November was so great because I went surfing with Alice Frazier from the Buga podcast. She's like a friend of mine. I met her because she started coming out to that Los Angeles podcast festival. And she does a podcast, Tea with Alice, and she was on Comedy Film Nerds, and her and I just became friends. And she's like a surfer. And so she took me surfing in Bondi Beach, which was great. I surfed a couple days in Bondi Beach, which was fun this past trip. And it was just great talking to her and hanging out with her. And then we got something to eat afterwards, which was fantastic. And then the surfing I did in Perth. Oh, I fell in love with Western Australia. Just fell in love with it. Ron and I were in Perth. We only had one show, but we were in Perth for like 3 days or something. So we had a couple of days to just hang out. And we're in this little beach town. I forget the name of it, just north of Perth on the beach. And it was rad, dude. I just like... beautiful. It was just beautiful. The waves were just gorgeous. It was just, and talking to the folks in the surf shop there, they were just like, oh yeah, you just drive up Western Australia. There's like 1,000 miles of just like all these amazing surf breaks that barely anyone's. It's just like it was just like, oh God, I want to do that in Western Australia. So yes, I love Australia, and when it opens up, I might move there. Large Marge sent me RNC convention showed oil refineries all over the world. Our way of life. Yep, oil. It's so great. Irish melancholy may give you a need to hate. That's funny. Okay. Tell them Large Marge sent you. Graham sounds like an NPR station. Oh, coming up next on Left, Right, and Center is we're going to talk to how to make banjos from rainbows or whatever. Sparky, shave your knuckles for justice. Lots of Syrians have lived in Atlanta by way of Lebanon for generations. They're fine people. Yeah, I've met so many wonderful people from that part of the world. Just so nice. I would really wanted to visit Iran before the shutdown and everything. We were talking about going last year when they were really ramping up for war with Iran. I was like, we got to go there. I was at a no war with Iran protest in January of this year. Seems like simpler times. Convo Couch people were there. Ron, Jimmy, Abby Martin, Mike Preisner were all there. Jimmy spoke. Movement for a People's Party convention, August 30th at 4 p.m. Eastern on Jimmy Dore's channel. You can also go to peoplesparty.org. Let me put this up in there. Hedges, Mike Gravel, Cornell West, Nina Turner, Jimmy Dore, Danny Glover, and Ryan Knight, Lauren Ashcroft, and Marianne Williams. People's Party. Check that right out. I'd rather die early. Don't care to live long enough for World War III. Yeah, I don't want to see any more war, man. Snork Y2K, shave your knuckles for justice. Surf Iowa, Clear Lake has swells over 7 millimeters high. Yeah, there's nothing. Sam Dean, so nice to hear a wholesome story. Never forget that even though the world is a complicated place, it's us, the people, that have the privilege to even be here. Graham, peace with you. Peace be with you, mate. Yeah, you got that right, man. Monotalk, what's up? I used to surf with Laird Hamilton. We went to high school together in Kauai. He's nuts. Partycrasher.us. You got to be a little nuts to surf 40-foot waves, man. Laird Hamilton. Watch the doc. There's a great documentary, Riding Giants. I think it came out in 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. Great documentary about the history of big wave surfing. It's awesome. It's really cool. Voice sounds like an SNL skit about sweaty. Oh, funny. All right. All right, folks, I got to run. So I'm going to be on a break until next week. I'll be dropping it. Probably not. Usually I drop 3 clips a day, but I'll be dropping probably 1 or 2 clips a day, just so something drops every day. It'll be clips from these last couple of days of stuff. And yeah. So probably next Tuesday I'll go live again. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Yeah, but at least 5 days off. Yeah, I'm gonna take a break. Doing some traveling, but I'll be back. And with the StreamYard, it's great. No matter, it's great. I can have really cool, compelling interviews and all this stuff with StreamYard. I'm very grateful for that. So, maybe a random car charging clip. I love Chris Hedges. The white Jesus thing throws me off a bit, but he's usually spot on. The U.S. Yeah. Sam Dean, Shave Your Knuckles for Justice. Granny Petrol should sing Flash, but saying Greta instead of Flash. Send us off with a hilarious jam made. All right, you got it. You got it. Flash. He saved every one of us. That song. Yeah, I know Jimmy just went live, so I'll let you guys jump on that. All right, hold on. All right, folks. And please, I'm going to be revamping the store. So this will be the last couple days that you can buy anything from the store. So there's maybe 10 tins of the tea left. So it's all going to get shut down. So go to grahamelwood.com, buy the Political Vigilante. I'll even ship to Australia. I just send it out to Humanity. So if you're in Australia, just do a donation of about $45. The shipping is about 20 some dollars. The tea is 20. So if you just go to PayPal and do like $45 and say, I live in Australia, this is my tea, or the UK, I'll do that. But you got to map out the address for me. Yeah, all the stuff that's on the store now, the Comedy Film Nerds book, Live from Afghanistan DVD, the earbuds are all, and the tea are all going to be done probably by like Saturday is when I'll shut the store down. So get it all now, folks. It's a great way to support the show. Go to grahamelwood.com. If you want to support the show with money, just go buy something from the store because the DVDs and the book I autograph, and the Political Vigilante shirts, I'm getting rid of those. Although that logo I'll probably keep. So I'm just revamping my store. So now's the time. And then we're going to have Granny Petrol is going to sing. Well, hello. It's Granny Petrol. All right, let's sing a little song. This one's dedicated to Greta. Greta, ha ha. She'll take away pipelines. She doesn't want kids to have fun. She doesn't like adults. Greta, ha ha. She's a miracle. Greta, ha ha. King of the impossible. She's done for every one of us. He'll save with a mighty hand every man, woman, and every child with a mighty flash. Taking away pipelines. Doesn't want kids to have fun in coal mines. School strikes, angry at adults, but revered by everybody. Everybody thinks she's wonderful. Greta! Ha ha! Greta! Ha ha! She'll save every one of us. Just a young girl with a young girl's courage, who knows nothing but wanting to hurt adults. No one but the pure in heart find the golden grail hidden in a fracking fluid. Pipelines make the world run better. It's not contaminated water, it's freedom water. The water of truth and democracy has fracking fluid in it. Greta. Ah. Oh, that's the sound of an oil pipeline, bringing nature's candy to all of us. Not riding around in some hippie boat stopping school, being mad at adults. Greta. Oh, you hear that? Everybody having fun. Well, that's Granny Petrol, everybody, talking about Greta. She doesn't like having fun, doesn't want children to play in coal mines, frolicking in coal. She thinks that's bad. She wants to take away your freedoms, your right to get iron, to get black lung. She wants to take away that right from you. Don't let Greta do it. Don't let Big Spinach spew lies to you. Don't let the vegan smoothie mafia propagandize you, telling you that little mom and pop companies like Shell and ExxonMobil are bad. They're just good, regular people bringing the earth's natural juices out of the soil so that all of us can have jobs. Oh, climate collapse is a bunch of hooey. That's what's said to you by Big Kale and the Organic Fruit Consortium. My name's Grady Petrol. Mic drop. What's up, citizens of Gotham? Let me make sure I didn't miss any super chats. You're all fantastic. Sparky, you're Buddhist, so think, what would Kwai Chang Caine do? Oh, I love that show, Kung Fu. I liked it. It's not Carradine's fault, but it was a little racist. It was supposed to be Bruce Lee, but he was a little too ethnic. Get the tea, good stuff. F the oligarchs, shave your knuckles for justice, vegan guns for truth. Graham, you should try to reach out to Jake Morphonios. He's a great anti-war journalist who has spent a lot of time in Palestine. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you so much. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Graham, don't leave us. I got to take a break, kids. It's okay. Action. Help Graham expand his audience. Go to Twitter and contact Sean Atwood and ask him to invite Graham Atwood on his show or vice versa. Nice. Thank you. Boom. Thank you so much. Is surfer localism a problem where you live, Graham? No, not really. People are pretty cool. People are pretty cool. Let's make sure I didn't miss anybody. We got them all. All right, kids. Thank you so much. 667 likes. That's what I'm talking about. That is awesome. That is awesome. Bing, boom, bing, boom, boom. All right, that's the show, everybody. I'll be back next week. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Go to the Movement for a People's Party. Follow me on all the social media and all that. And remember, you're all political vigilantes You're all making Gotham great again in one way or another. Every little action you do, vote with your dollars. It all matters. Thank you so much. Boom.